as we speak. Now going back here, Damien Gaudin, we saw him take a shortcut through the car park with the chain across earlier on. This is George Hincapie driving. George has seen he's got a split and a useful group here. It's time to move it on a little bit. That's his feeling. Tom Bonen has made it as well. So too has Fabian Cancellara and Matti Breschel. So both the champions of Saxo Bank are here.
And Leif Hoste and Thor Hushovd. These are all the big names, Phil, going to the front, being attentive at 77 kilometres to go.
But no Steen de Volder.
Steen de Volder was a little bit further back. He looked to me as if he was riding in around about 30th. Now, that's not the position to be in. This is only an hors d'oeuvre. This is only the curtain raiser. There's still a lot of climbing to go. There's still a lot of racing to go. But Saxo Bank have put out the hammer very early on in this race to toughen it up.
Well, they've done that. There's 10 riders, I think, going clear there. And so De Volder will be in this second group here. He's committed now not to chase down the leaders because he's got his teammate Tom Bonen up there. So De Volder will hope his end back in the race. The peloton, those 10 chasers, are now just 52 seconds behind the 4 survivors of the breakaway. We might see the odd 1 or 2 pass by as they pass them.
Now got about 5 kilometres to go, Phil, to the Ode to the Koppenberg, one of the most famous climbs in the race. There was a rumour circulating around the event that because of the conditions the race organisation may take it out. We don't have any definitive information on that, but I think looking at the roads and the fact that it's fairly dry, they will go there. But this is quite amazing to see many of the big favourites of the bike race already in a small fraction off the front end of the pack.
So early in the day. This is Oliver Bonner now, so he'll get passed by. He must be a little bit surprised to see just a handful of riders coming through. There's the big push, and Bonen is saying, come on, let's work together. Hincapie's read the movie. He's a very clever rider when it comes to one-day classic racing.
Well, it's all about what I said a little earlier with George Hincapie, Phil. He's got the age and experience in this race, but he's also got added to that the motivation. Of these races, that he loves the tradition of these races, and that's what motivates him, probably motivates this week of racing than any other week in the whole of the season.
This is George's week. He's won Gent-Wevelgem. That was his first big one-day classic win. He's been coming close for years now in both the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, and there's still time to land it. He rides now on Team BMC, and I bet he never thought he'd be in the same peloton as Lance Armstrong ever again, his old friend and teammate of the years gone by. But he is, and Lance could be back in because he's in these chasing groups.
Those are the casualties of the Patersberg, which the riders have just gone over. It's really split the main field, and it's all really started, as I say, every year, and I suppose I'll continue to say that. It all starts with the aggression on the slopes, which is not really a very long climb in itself, but it's what happens with the crosswinds that batters the riders.
Well, I don't think we're seeing the final shape of the chase group just yet, but I can tell you that if it does work out, there's going to be a few shocks. There's still some names up behind here. This little group not quite working as well together as I would expect. I'm just trying to work out who that B-box rider is, because again, they're on such a high, the B-box squad, that they keep on winning race after race, and they've got a man in the break here. Well, taking on food.
There's too many big names in this group, unfortunately, Phil, and they don't want to work together. They've probably not eliminated some of the guys that they wanted to. Hincapie looking over, and he's trying to encourage everybody to work, as is Tom Bonen, who sees this as an advantage to going to the Koppenberg without any of the confusion of having 40 or 50 other riders trying to be in the first 2 or 3 positions.
Well, it's advantage the strong man. That's the way it is in the Ronde van Vlaanderen. And if they can get up the Koppenberg, it's the others who'll have to try and break the peloton to reach them, and it's a lovely position to be in. Keep on searching. There's 1 or 2 riders crossing that gap, but there's still a real pursuit behind. And look at the size of that peloton. It's still about 25-30 riders strong just now. Breschel looking up. There's a little bit of discussion going on here, and that is not the way we want to go. Is this Leif Hoste here?
Yep.
So Hoste is looking around. They need a big result, Hoste, because the Lotto team, which is now the Omega Pharmacy team, really need a big result. The press are giving them a real big heartache just now.
Yeah, well, that's the way the press are in Belgium. They don't mind giving them a big slamming at all. There's just 2 kilometres now, Phil, to go to the start of the climb of the Koppenberg.
10 riders here. I think the Lambau credit rider tacked on to the back was in the breakaway. I think it's David Boucher who's come to the back and right to the back of the break. There's going to be a coming together here, which is going to bring David Miller and I think Tyler Farrer back into the thick of the action as well. Just looking down, didn't see Lance then, but you might have spotted him, did you, Paul?
Well, that's the Weg Omlingen. That's the deviation there to the left-hand side there. That's where the motorbike cameramen and all of the team cars have to go. So we are going to go over the Koppenberg, and these riders in a group slightly further back, looking out to see whether or not they can judge the distance between themselves and the leading group of riders.
Well, there's the helicopter, the only man that's going to show us the way round now, because they've sent everybody else off course on purpose, as we head to the narrow climb of the Koppenberg, and then the Tour of Flanders will start again here. Well, the effort being made by that group of 10 have put them in one situation, that's at the front on the narrow road, which is very, very important right now as we climb up this little ridge which will take us over to those houses, onto the Koppenberg itself. Nice place to live, difficult place to ride your bike. Back with the leaders, the survivors of the 8 men. There should only be 4, and there are. There's the names for you. The evergreen, Garcia Acosta, is at the back just now in the black.
Netjev is still in there. He's in the blue and white jersey with the yellow helmet for Team Katusha. And these riders will have the advantage of moving on to the cobblestones of the Koppenberg in the first 4 places. They may well find themselves locked into the main fold by the time they get to the top of it, because this is going to be a beast of a climb. You can see how nasty these roads are here. These are farm roads, really. They're not used by major traffic, and they get battered by the very difficult winters that Belgium suffers.
Well, very soon now they're going to be in the sights. They're making the right turn to start the climb. 72 kilometers done. The 4 leaders will struggle on this climb. They must struggle on this climb now. They've been away for about 180 kilometers in the lead today. Originally 8, down to 4. And now they're feeling the real bite from the Ronde van Vlaanderen. It's only 600 meters, Paul, but it can change the face of the race.
You may well get a chance from this angle just to see how steep this climb is, because it's 22% at the top.
So we're looking at the leaders of the Tour of Flanders now as they start the climb of the Koppenberg, this cobbled route with 72 kilometers to go. The main lead chase group, which at the moment is about 10 riders, have got these 4 virtually in their sight now, but they are desisting. And I think there might be a few more than 10 when they get themselves onto the bottom of the climb as well.
Ooh, a little bit of dampness over on the left-hand side. You can see what these riders need to make sure of now is they keep over to the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the road that they're coming up, because this road is slippery. The only way really to ride it, you've got to sit down, you have to have the power.
They are on the slopes now of the Koppenberg, these cobbled stones. They can hardly get out of the saddle, it is so steep. And in fact, this is the leader of the 4 survivors of the break, Gussinen, who seems to be sitting on that saddle and pulling away. As we draw down to the bottom, the peloton, for the first time in the best part of 200 kilometers, have the head of the race in their sights. And they are all there and battling for places.
Second place there, Tom Bone and Matti Breschel up alongside him. These riders now, the way to ride this is you've got to sit down, you've got to be a powerhouse, you've got to have a big engine to get up a climb like this, but you've also got to avoid the damp part of the climb, because that's when you start to get tyre slip. Once you lose momentum and stop, you can't get on your bike again, you've got to walk to the top. Look at Bonen and Breschel here.
Well, Bonen's bad side of the Koppenberg in the past, but he's right up at the sharp end right now. A trouble for the B-box rider who can't get his rhythm at all. The quickest way is to get off and walk and even run and jump back on over the top. The camera belies just how steep it is. That gives you a better idea. This is a real struggle. That was Gussinen, who's going to be first over the top.
Well, somebody's often walking or running, I have to say, and once you lose the momentum, this climb, Phil, to put it into perspective, it is so steep you can't get going again. You just cannot get back on the bike. You don't have the power or the gears to get going. And if somebody said to me this morning there wasn't going to be any wind in Belgium today, look at the Flemish Lion flags.
And look at Matti Breschel here and Tom Bonen, who have tamed the Koppenberg here. They've gone over the top together. Bonen is looking immensely strong today. Matti Breschel is actually saying that he is the man to win for Saxo Bank and not Fabian Cancellara. And right now, it's Breschel who's playing his card, the champion of Denmark.
And Bonen right up there alongside him. This is quite strange. We've got the 2 big teams that we talked about, Phil, before the start of the race. Saxo Bank with 2 leaders. Quickstep with 2 leaders. Now, which way was the tactics going to work out? I wonder what Fabian Cancellara will do.
Well, there's still a lot of big names that can counter this move, and not least Thor Hushovd.
Hincapie was still in that group of riders with Fabian Cancellara, so not too far off the mix.
And this is the chaos. These boys only just contacted the Bonen group at the base of the climb. and now they've been split off again, so another chase will ensue at 70 kilometres to go.
If you're looking for a yellow helmet, well, there it is, and that is Lance Armstrong. He's not too far away. He's got himself over the Koppenberg, so he's still pretty much in contenders with some of the top riders in the Ronde van Vlaanderen here this afternoon.
Well, I have to say, we've seen chaos, but I think this is the year that we've seen a lot of chaos in this race. It's been really tough for the riders to hold position, and so far it has all been hats off to the Saxo Bank squad, who have caused most of the trouble.
The damage is what they cause. Look, this is what's happening over at the right-hand side. That's a rider from B-Box, and once you get stuck in the side of the road, you can't get your bike going again. You've got to walk to the top. That's why this climb we're talking about here, can I remind you, this is still only climb number 6 of 15. There's still some brutes of Flanders to come before we get to the end.
And just struggling there as well once again is Lars Bak from HTC Columbia. Now all of these boys have come to a stop. You can virtually write off their hopes now, because by the time they get to the top, by the time they remount, they will have very little hope of catching up. And it looks as though David Miller is in the thick of the trouble there.
Well, this is it's an unbelievable climb. It was taken out of the Tour of Flanders a few years ago, and a little anecdote, by the way, because Lance Armstrong came to ride this climb the other day in training, and it was repaved, and some of the old cobbles were held back, and one of them was given to Armstrong as a present. I wonder if he'll have to worry about excess baggage.
I think he'll pass it back after this, but he has gone over in a pretty good position, Lance, and with a little bit of hard work with the group he's in, they could contact the leaders again. Now we can only go where our cameras take you, and at the moment we have 4 leaders. We have a chase of Bonen and Breschel, and then back to the first serious chase group.
The brown shorts at the back there of the AG2R rider, well, that is Nicolas Rousseau. He's one of the riders who was in that 8-man breakaway. A change of fortune, really, from the front of the race to the back.
So as the riders continue to reorganize themselves to just take a look at each other and find out who is where and who is missing, and the answer is Bonen and Breschel are missing at the moment. They should be the first 2 riders to contact the breakaway, but as we look down here, Bonen is in this group, so he's got a few others around him now for company.
Well, the next climb, and they're coming thick and fast, I've got to say, Phil, is going to be climb number 7. That's Steen Bekerdriesen. Now, this is one of the climbs that's changed in its position in the race, because they've moved the Molenberg a little bit further down the series of hills, and there's a big section of cobblestones before the riders get to the Molenberg. The organisers have done that on purpose.
Well, the grand old man of the cycling world, Vincenti Garcia Agosta, is now missing from that group. As we now go a fair way down, I think it's Sebastian Rossler again who's coming up now. He's had a pretty tough day out there, and I think his race is done. These are the 3 leaders who've got themselves out front. Floris Kusenin of the skill team, Mikael Ignatiev of Katusha, and also with him is Joost van Lenen of Vakantie. And there he is. That is Garcia da Costa. I don't think he's any ambition to catch up with his erstwhile breakaway. He must be very, very tired at 69 kilometres to go now, so he's going to fall away. It's 3 versus the rest.
Well, there's a lot of climbs to go, still 9 climbs left to go. That's the front of the main field. It's swelled in numbers quite a bit there, and I wonder if Lance Armstrong is still in contact with that group. George Hincapie, he certainly is. He's ridden very attentively. He's made sure that he's in contact all of the time. Obviously, you can guess that Juan Antonio Fletcher is in that leading group, because the riders on the front setting the tempo are Team Sky.
Feeding time for the leaders now. They broke away at around 2 kilometres into the race. It's 262, and they're still in the lead, almost 200 kilometres ahead of the field, and it has been a very active field today. They gave it 13 minutes, and then Saxo Bank decided they would have to start the chase, and as a result we've seen a lot of guys lose position in the peloton. Well, they've earned their lunch today, Paul, there's no doubt about that, but they're going to have company in the next few kilometres.
They will, but they will be able to say at the end of this day that they have been at the front, and they were the riders who were the first to conquer the old Quaremont, the Paterberg and the famous Koppenberg, and they have formed the race as very much the early morning breakaway often does. But what it's done, I think, Phil, has made this a very tough race so far, and it's been toughened by one team in particular, that's Team Saxo Bank, and Stuart O'Grady, the Australian, really has pounded out a very nasty rhythm to make everybody else suffer.
Yes, and Matti Breschel has come up as good as Fabian Cancellara, so they've got 2 strong players there in the team. It looks as though Steen de Volder was not up to that initial attack, because he wasn't there when Tom Bonen forced it, and he's probably back now because the group is quite big again, but he wasn't there at the crucial move. It didn't work on this occasion, and he's reduced the peloton though down to a very big field, to what looks now to be around about 25 riders. One of those will win the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Irish flag down there as well.
Oh, by the way, that yellow helmet, the Livestrong helmet,
is there.
That is worn by Lance Armstrong, is just there at the back end of the main field. So despite all of the pressure that's been put on, the former 7-time Tour de France winner, Phil, is still in that group.
Well, they can't take away pure talent, and Lance has plenty of that as we now do another 2 kilometre of the Maria Borrestraat, which is another little bone shaker now.
And that's going to take the riders to the next climb of the day, and that is a cobblestone climb of the Steenbeek-Dries. And this is 2 kilometres in length. Smooth, I'd have to say, Phil, this is a cobblestone boulevard for the riders.
Yes, it must almost feel like it's a paved road. It's so smooth. But Goosen at the back here for Skill Shimano. He's shown the Tour de France organisers today that his team should have been selected perhaps for the Tour de France. I can't say I've got a feeling either way. I think the Tour de France has had a very difficult decision to make, and they've had to go in favour of the world champions team, Team BSC, and of course Team Sky are right on the front now and driving for Fletcher.
Well, Tyler Farrow's right up there, filling around about 8th or 9th position. I just spotted him riding alongside George Hincapie, so he's enjoying his Belgian campaign this year.
Well, we've always said it, but one day, and it might be today, Tyler Farrar is going to win one of the world's great races, and there's none greater in the single-day classics, as some would argue Paris-Roubaix, but to a Belgian, it's this one, the Tour of Flanders. It is an incredible race. You can't cheat your way to victory in this race, Paul, because even when you're in the peloton, you're riding for yourself.
It's a question of survival, especially once you come down to the end, because you've got to fight before every section of cobblestones. You have to fight before every climb of the day. You've got to stay at the front end of the main field and make sure that you stay in contact. Nice to see there, number 161, Lance Armstrong. You know, he's always enjoyed this race because he's always enjoyed racing in Belgium. One of his early great victories was the Flèche Wallonne, which is on the Mur de Huy, the other side of Belgium, a different kind of race. But I think Armstrong enjoys the tradition of something like the Tour of Flanders and the fame and the stories.
I think it was 2003 when we met him in Amiens during the Tour de France, a day after he'd come across all the cobblestones in northern France. And I said, Lance, you rode really well on the cobblestones. He said, I love them. I just love hurting everybody else. Well, life is perhaps not quite as young as he was then. So now he's sitting on the back, but he's read the move and he's right there. And things can happen in his favour. 700 metres now of this one. So again, as we pick up the peloton here, the gap now is 37 seconds of 3 leaders. They're closing in. Lance Armstrong is at the back of this group. He has come across with no trouble at all. You can just see him there, tagged on to the rear of the field, as we've got the Sky Boys now pushing for Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Well, Fletcher right in there. Chris Sutton is in this group as well, and there you can see moving around the outside, it's the Lotto squad. This is the Steenbeek-Dries, only 700 meters long. Its maximum climb is 7%, the average is 5%. George Hincapie is in this group as well, so is Tyler Farrar, but amazingly just a little bit further up you can see Lance Armstrong enjoying his Easter Sunday.
So far of the big names, we're still looking to see if Thor Hushovd has made the split and Stein de Volder, because there are 2 riders we haven't seen much of in this last half hour of racing, but all the rest seem to be here, and Armstrong has really read it well. Hard work being done here. They're trying now to force an issue where we have about 25 riders slowly pulling clear. How those breakaways are staying clear of this race, I really don't know right now, because they've been in front for just on 200 kilometres, and the 3 of them are still holding 32 seconds.
You've got to love the organisation, Phil, because there's 2 kilometres only separating the top of the Steenbeek-Dries and the Tyenberg, and theoretically this is not a cobblestone section of the route, but looking from our height in the sky here, it would appear to me that those are cobblestones down there. And
thankfully we're across that railroad crossing because it's unguarded and they wouldn't be stopping the train today, so the leaders are through, the breakaway is through, only a half a minute gap now between them. Even our cameraman now, and goodness, you've got to say well done to the camera boys, how they keep up with the action and hold that camera so steady on these roads. I really don't know.
Well, the next climb is also one of the very steep climbs of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, Tour of Flanders. It's the Tyenberg. It's almost 16%. Bonen there, you can see in his national champion of Belgian jersey, riding in about 8th position, black, yellow and red. George Hincapie, American national champion, he's right in there. There's Tyler Farrar just picking his way through there. Fabian Cancellara, all of the big names right up here.
Tom Bonan looking a little bit calmer now. He was making a huge effort earlier on, but Roger Hammond, who's also ridden well in this race in the past, the British rider, he is now tagged on to the back of this group. It looks like Roger may be having another good day in a classic.
Well, he's one of those rare English riders who can speak Flemish perfectly. He's spent a lot of his time living here in Belgium, so he knows this race and he gets motivated by this race. And I think, again, we talked a little earlier about George Hincapie's motivation for races like this. There's Hincapie. Look at that. In 5th position again, Phil. Today feels to me like a very special Tour of Flanders because there's a battle for every cobblestone section. Hincapie going round there right on the wheel of Fabian Cancellara.
Well, the pattern can change so quickly, you don't know when things are going to go wrong. Here are the 3 leaders, still just about out of sight here now as we start the next climb, and it's Goossenen. He really climbs very well. This is the Tyenberg, a cobble brute again, and he just puts his head down and just thinks of those pedals as pistons, and he pushes on them. And Ignatiev just behind him as well.
Sky organised 1, 2, 3 at the front end of the main field, and that's for Juan Antonio Fletcher, hoping to be the first Spanish rider ever to win the Ronde van Vlaanderen. In the middle, Matti Breschel. There's so many national champions riding at the front end of this group. This really is the creme de la creme.
There are 4 right here. Breschel, Denmark, Cancellara, Switzerland, Hincapie, USA, Bonan of Belgium, and they're right on the sharp end. This is an incredible event.
Phil, I've always loved this event, but I've got a feeling there's something special going to happen this afternoon. I've got some serious goosebumps going down my back.
Well, we're looking down at Breschel, who seems to be immensely strong here as he continues. He looks round, he looks straight into the face of Bonan. Fletcher is on the left of our picture in the black jersey. The big favourites are not making mistakes, but I haven't seen the winner for the past 2 years yet, De Volder.
Well, De Volder struggled after winning this race last year. He won it 2 years in a row, and then all of a sudden he went on to be a possible Tour de France top 10 contender. He failed there. He's really suffered to find the form that brought him to this win last year. He's looking at, well, you were talking about him, Phil. Here he is, and he's in the wrong position.
And he's moving forward very rapidly here. He's just scooting past there, Le Quatre, the Frenchman on Radio Shack. Rapidly closing gaps. He may have got caught in the back group. He's making his way through as best he can just now.
Well, this is a man trying to get himself back into the race. There's Armstrong over on the right-hand side, so we are in the leading group. De Volder has pulled himself inside out, Phil, to get himself back into the race. Stewie O'Grady there just slipping back, but I don't think we'll complain about that after the work that he's done.
No, incredible day out for O'Grady. There he is, 178. He's going to hang on as long as he can now and then make his best way home as he can. Meanwhile, up here with the leaders now. I wonder if the message has got through. Stijn de Volder's coming up.
Philippe Gilbert on the front now, just looking over his shoulder. He's a great tip for the French-speaking part of Belgium to possibly get the victory here this afternoon. He's certainly not afraid of the cobblestone classics at all.
So no decision on the Tyenberg, but all of the favourites seem to be right in the pack, and nobody giving away just how strong they are just yet. 28 seconds the gap. Another attack from Vacansoleil now from the breakaways. They come over the top of the Tyenberg. Another team not selected for the Tour de France, determined to say we should have been.
Well, you were a race organiser yourself, Phil, for many
hard.
years at the milk race in Great Britain. I have to say, it is hard to pick the teams, especially nowadays when there are so many good teams who are aggressive, who want to go out and race. What do you do so far ahead of the event?
Well, absolutely right. And Johnny Hogeland here, he's a Dutchman on a Dutch team. He had 2 wins last year. He won the Tour of West Flanders as well as a stage. So it looks like he knows the roads just about as good as anyone. He knows what to expect. And he's obviously feeling quite frisky at this stage.
25 seconds, 24 seconds is the advantage, but only just around the corner there. You can see the front end of the main field. These riders will now continue to ride at the front end of the race because although they know, and this is where the economics of the sport of professional cycling comes in, Phil, the riders off the front end of the main field, the 3 riders who have survived, will want to stay up in the front for as long as possible to get some TV time for their sponsors.
You bet your life. And it looks as though they've just caught the peloton here, the leading peloton. Taking a little bit of a break now as they start to rethink their tactics. Here are the 3 leaders, Native, Goossenen and Van Lenen. And as I said, there's the peloton now. They've seen them coming. They know that the inevitable is going to happen, but nonetheless, just on 200 kilometres up in front. Incredible.
It certainly is, but the big names are being very attentive so far from the finish. And I think there's a lot of men think they've got a very good chance of getting themselves a victory. That's Hoster, Leif Hoster, just on the right-hand side. 3 times that man, Phil, has finished second in the Tour of Flanders. Will he break his duck? And that's a cricket term, by the way, for a man going out to not get 0 runs.
He's one of the few cyclists in the world who's finished second in this great race and cried because he actually had lost it, because he's been second, as Paul says, 3 times, and all he wants is just 1 win. It's a big ask. I mean, Eddie Merckx says he doesn't like this race because he's only won it twice.
Well, you are talking about a man who won Milan-San Remo 7 times on that occasion.
And the age 5, absolutely. Anyway, this is a very select group. They've tested each other on the climbs. They've split, they've yo-yoed, they've come back into the group. Now, we're not running out of hills yet. We've got plenty in store for the riders, and we've got 62 kilometres to decide. But there are looking to me to be some very strong riders in this group today.
Well, you might have said that Stuart O'Grady was disappearing from the race, but I just saw him scuttling up the outside. That's what being a teammate, Phil, is all about. You do go through a hard patch, but you do realise you've got to stay in the race for as long as possible to try. There he's in 4th place.
It is amazing.
You're staying there for as long as you possibly can to offer as much assistance to the team leader on the day. And the team leaders, I have to say, for Saxo Bank are Cancellara and, of course, Matti Breschel.
Oh, and that looks like we're very close there. That was Voigtler coming through, I think, on the inside. The last man, well, he's moved off the back of the riders now, is Kurt Assel Arvidsson. He, don't forget, he's recovering from a broken collarbone, and he's riding superbly well, but his team is probably inspiring him.
Well, just sitting at the back there for Radio Shack is Gregory Rast. He's the big rider who's seen formerly an Astana squad, and he's a rider who we can expect to do a lot of work in the Tour de France. I'm sure he'll be part of that 9-man squad in July.
But what about Thomas Voigtler? He's had a 3rd place overall in the Tour of Sardinia. He's having a very, very good start to the season. He certainly isn't a classics rider, at least results say he isn't, and he's never had a top 10 finish in this event. But he's here, and his team, they couldn't be more confident right now, because every time they ride, they supply a winner.
Well, this is Chris Sutton on the front for Team Sky. It's great to see these riders getting... Look at the organisation of Team Sky. Let's not forget, this is the 1st year of Team Sky. They've put themselves together an extremely strong squad. Signing up riders like Juan Antonio Fletcher, I think, was a major coup for them because it gives them credibility going into these one-day classics. But they've got the organisation very quickly, as did Team Cervelo Test Team last year. It's because of what is put into the time of investing, getting the guys together, getting to training camps, getting them to expeditions so they can have that team building, and it shows in races like this, and that, I think, is the strong side. That they've maybe learned and stolen from one Bjarne Riis, who's done that for many, many years with Team Saxo Bank.
Well, absolutely. I think in many ways that the British Cycling Federation have modelled their success and their building of their teams and their riders on the way that has led to the success in Australia. And Chris is very happy to be on Team Sky right now, coming across to the team this year. And in fact, they're starting off with a win, get them a win straight away in the Jaco Bay Classic Series in Geelong, where the World Championships will be held later this year. He's still driving on the front, 60 kilometres to go, 9 seconds. These boys refuse to give up. If you want to catch him, then do so, but we're not coming back to you.
There's no raising the white flag in surrender here at the Tour of Flanders. It's as soon as you've come up to our slipstream, then we will stop, but not until that moment as they come onto another of these small Flandrian roads. Looking across there, it's not much more than 3 or 4 seconds now. It's Matty Heyman, I think, who's slipped to the front to take over the pacemaking for Chris Sutton, but they will just keep riding at the front until they die for their man today, who's going to be the Spaniard Juan Antonio Fletcher, looking for a good performance. This is the change. This is the Eichenberg.
As we hit the cobbles of the Eichenberg now at 60 kilometres to go, there is the spread of the Tour of Flanders, and Matthew Heyman of Team Sky is bringing up a very select bunch of riders to the 3 survivors. 3 survivors of a breakaway that has been in front now for 200 kilometres.
That is an awful long way, but we're looking here, Phil, at one of the changes in the route of the Tour of Flanders this year, because the Eichenberg has been brought forward. It's coming straight after the Tyenberg. We're basically on the same range of hills hills that we zigzag, and the Tour of Flanders has zigzagged it in many different ways over the years, but this year they've decided to pull the Eichenberg in and put the Molenberg a little bit further down the road. Now, between the Eichenberg and the Molenberg, there's 3.5 kilometers of cobblestones. This is a hard climb on its own, but once you look at the 3.5 kilometers of cobblestones afterwards, there's going to be a bit of fireworks here.
And thereby lies the thought, I think, behind Tom Bonan today, who said he thought the course was made tougher because of it, and that's why he tried to split this race up, at least reduce it in size, because trouble on the next section of cobblestones and you probably won't rejoin the riders. The face of the youngster here, Floris Gusinen, and alongside him Ignatiev, former world junior champion, former world under-23 road race champion. But it doesn't matter about reputation. He's now back in the front group with 60 kilometers to ride. The front peloton is all together.
And one man who's had a very hard time, Stijn de Volder, he was caught out by one of the splits at the back end of the race. He, with his Belgian Flemish courage, has battled himself back into this race because it is the Tour of Flanders. It is the biggest sporting event that Belgium has on their calendar, and it is for the Flandrians the most important race of the year.
And for Gusinen, he just won't give up. He's going to try and be first over the top again. Unhitching just a little bit here at the back is Geoffrey Lecat, who is now on Team Radio Shack. He's done well to hold on in there. He's still yo-yoing.
Pretty funny, his name is Geoffroy Lecat, and the last number of his race number is 4, which is 4 in French.
Geoffrey the 4th. Yes, and it looked as though it was in fact Vincenti Garcia Acosta who was slipping off the back just ahead of him there. But Gusinen refuses to acknowledge that he's got to go into second place in this race right now. He's still staying at the front. They're switching with Mikhail Ignatiev, while the boys from Team Sky just get on with the job and just keep Fletcher in a good position, ready for any move that the likes of Farrar, Bonan, or even Hushoff, although I haven't seen Hushoff just now. I'm not sure he's in there.
Well, Stuart O'Grady at the back there, 178. He keeps yo-yoing up to the front and then slipping to the back of this pack. And the reason for that, Phil, is he, along with a lot of the other riders on Team Saxo Bank, have done a phenomenal amount of work this afternoon to make this race a tough race. To make this race, I think, one that's going to be a race of survival down towards the end.
Just look at this man here, Mikhail Ignatiev from Team Katusha. Robbie McEwen started, but he's been in trouble. He's dropped off on the climbs. He doesn't live very far away from where the race finishes either. But they're off that climb now, and they've got to be very careful here. They don't want to get down that little guttering. That's where we've had a couple of crashes. Team Radio Shack are well listed here at the front at the moment. They've got 3 or 4 riders up here.
Well, they're well represented, but riding much further towards the front of this group with his yellow standard helmet on is Lance Armstrong, and he's still in here.
So 59 kilometers to go. For the first time in 200 at the front end is all together, and as they say, everything to race for.
Former Belgian national champion there, Jurgen Roelandts. I think he may well have a mechanical problem, looking over his shoulder to see where the team cars are, and that's the difficult thing in the Tour of Flanders, because the race gets split up on these cobbled climbs.
He's got a flat tire.
You can be waiting for a long time, but you see, he doesn't want to lose too much time.
Yep.
He doesn't care about the equipment. He doesn't pay for the equipment. He will ride on that rim until he's got a team car behind him to lose as least time possible.
You feel for him, you've got to. Where's that car coming through? The trouble is the race is in such a disarray behind now. He's just got to wait till the car can get through. They will know he's got the problem and they'll be desperate. But I'm not sure they'll get to him in time here, because the race is being pushed on at the front. And Bernard Eisel, just seen him, Paul, he is in this group as well.
Watch
Tom
out
Bonan having lunch.
Yeah, watch out for Bernard Eisel. He can sit in the wheels here and follow the splits. And if it comes down to the finish and there is a sprint, he can whack everybody. Kurt Adler-Arfesen, he's got himself back in there.
Yes, and recovered well from his broken collarbone. He's getting himself really back on form. Nasty crash in the Tour Qatar. Lance Armstrong right alongside him as well. Lance never ceases to amaze me. He really doesn't.
He's flown around the world this year, Phil.
Yeah.
He's been to Australia, he's been to South Africa, he's been everywhere to raise the level of awareness of cancer and his cancer campaign. But yet he still has that youthful enthusiasm of wanting to race a bike race. Why, at his age, would he want to come and ride a bike race like this? You know
because
why?
he loves it.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. He just loves it, and he never likes it better than when he's in the thick of the action. And he is right in there at the moment. And Arvidsson now, he's also on Team Sky, and in fact Saxo Bank didn't want to lose him, but they couldn't hold him when he went across here. Is also up there, but now heading into the Holloweg at 1500 meters here. And look at the sky behind, Paul, because it's getting a little bit black. Could be the next problem the leaders will face. Rain. Oh, what's happened here?
Cancellara's got a problem, and an incident for Cancellara here as he is at the back.
Hand is up. Fabian Cancellara, the big favourite for today's Ronde van Vlaanderen, has his hand up and he needs help pretty quickly here. Armstrong has gone right to the front of that group now. An amazing piece of riding, and the Team Sky are pushing. But now he's talking to the team. Does he have a puncture or what?
Well, he's got some kind of mechanical problem there. The mechanic is out of the car. It's very difficult on these cobblestones to try and figure it out. Kurt Atler Arvidsson, amazing. He was suffering at the back end of the race over the older Quaremont. He's recovered. Roger Hammond over on the right in the black jersey, Cervelo test team. These are a section, Phil, of 3 cobblestones patched together. 1,500 metres of the Holloweg, followed by 800 metres of the Roterstraat, followed by 1,800 metres of the Kirkgate, and that's just to take the riders over to the old Molenberg.
This is the part of the course that Tom Bonham was particularly afraid of, and that's why he's riding pretty near the front of this group. Also in this group is the HTC Columbia rider Bernard Eisel. And there's 1 or 2 surprises up here, I think, as well. Riders you may not have expected to see, particularly the French riders who are having a tremendous start to the season. This is life in the convoy now, and whatever was wrong with Fabian Cancellara, he's getting a little bit of an illegal leg up here. He'll have to get out of that pretty quickly. Well,
his teammate there has come back, Stewie O'Grady, over on the right-hand side. He wants to know what's up with you, Fabian, and this is not necessarily the right time to have a mechanical incident. This is the race that Cancellara has said all year that he really wants to win. Can't see his problem.
Well, he came back and he talked, but I don't think he's changed anything at all. There's the leading group. It's around about 25 riders. I think the rest of it is now out of the hunt. Armstrong has been appearing very strong in this group, and now Cancellara, his team trying to take him through here. Referees will keep a close eye on it, but they won't do anything about it at the moment. He's bordering on the illegal, but I think it'll be. I wonder, are they going to try and go ahead of the race?
They're trying to find a place where he can change his bike. The team car came up to have him in contact as much as possible. Watch this pro descent there. He got it off his bike like a cyclocross rider. Mechanic round the front of the car. They were preparing themselves for this. He realised
8 seconds.
It's almost like Formula 1, an 8-second bike change.
Did he fuel up as well, I wonder? Well, Cancellara on a fresh bike, which is all sized up for him, ready for just that situation. The big man is stomping on those pedals again and ripping himself back up to the leaders. I think he's got away with that one, and he's not going to lose ground. He's just banging on the car there, warning the neutral service to let him through.
But how calm was he at that time? He waited for the team. He discussed it with the team, what he was going to do, how he was going to handle that. He waited because he knows we're looking, Phil, at around about 3.5 kilometres of cobblestone sections here bolted together.
Gosh, and this morning in the press room, the journalists were saying anybody who has trouble on this section of road will be finished as far as this race goes. Who has trouble? The outstanding favourite Cancellara, and he's getting back.
But the calmness of the team manager, the calmness of the mechanic, that's the important thing. You've got to be well drilled. You can't panic in a moment like this, because if the rider starts to panic, it scares the mechanic. The mechanic makes a mistake. He drops the bottle, he drops the bike. But that was so well carried out, it was almost perfect. Totally
premeditated. 8 seconds I counted as he was back and running again. Now Cancellara at the moment, no need to panic too much. He's got the tail of the peloton in sight. He can just pedal himself back up. He chose the best possible place, I feel, there to make that change, and he's done it well. So 55 kilometres to go. Cancellara back in the bunch, and from this angle it looks quite a big bunch, doesn't it?
Certainly does. We're on the second of 3 sections of cobblestones which have been brought into the Tour of Flanders this year as the new change. There's another section after this at 1,500 metres, the cobblestone section of Kirkgate, taking the riders into Zwalme, and then they will go over climb number 10. And that, of course, is the climb of the Molenberg. Now, Matty Breschel, what's his problem? He's going back too.
No idea.
You know, that's what the race is all about. You can have everything go right, then all of a sudden...
Is he looking for Fabian, who's just come in?
I think he's putting his arm up like that because he's got his own mechanical problems on board.
Well, this is racing in Belgium. The sun can be out 1 minute and you can be in the biggest black hole the next. And it looks as though he's on his radio here now. So what are they going to do when radios aren't allowed next year in races like this? That'll be a big problem for some of these riders.
And
Matty
I think
Breschel.
a big disadvantage, because I wouldn't have wanted to lose a Fabian Cancellara in a race like this because of a mechanical incident.
So as we see, Breschel now comes to the back. He's waiting for the arrival, I think, of a team car. Well, the arrival there is of Thomas Voigtler. Didn't get back quite as quickly as Cancellara did, but he's got back nonetheless. And yo-yoing a bit. He doesn't like the cobbles so much, Thomas.
No, but he's a courageous rider. Don't forget, this is the guy who had the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for 10 days. And the last day that he held it, he lost it on the road about 10 times and dragged himself back into the race, and he held on to it by a fraction of a minute, maybe 7 or 8 seconds ahead of Lance Armstrong. Yeah. Armstrong went up to him at the finish and said, "Mate, good job today. You deserve to keep it for another day."
Absolutely.
But I'll have it tomorrow.
And he did. But even so, he said, if you try that hard, then you deserve the yellow jersey. That was a very nice gesture. Anyway, this is still the teammate of Lance Armstrong, who is still in that very select front bunch.
Gregory Rast.
Big Gregory Rast, the big man here, but he's still in the right place for Radio Shack. He's going to be an invaluable rider for Armstrong in the Tour de France. He can set a very high cadence and keep it going out mid-course in the Tour, and that's what he's there for.
Formerly champion of Switzerland, an extremely strong man, and an integral part of the Tour de France, what I suggest for Team Radio Shack. We're just looking at the back here. Met Breschel looking a bit nervous. There's the race organizer going by, so maybe the team car's up alongside him.
Yeah, he's looking for his team car. He's looking for his car now. We just turned, and they're now getting a full tailwind assistance run here. There's Saxo Bank. 1 minute their favourite Cancellara, and now the next minute their other favourite Breschel in trouble.
Oh, another bike change. Well, I don't know what's happened there, and you can see immediately there's a teammate stopped alongside, and this is not as fast as the previous one.
You could say that.
This is the problem. The bike's in the wrong place.
This is not good.
Oh, this is a slow change.
Well, they're trying to wrench it off the bike. It's not the widest of roads to do the job. Breschel is going to have to work hard. The advantage is the convoy is still going by, so he can get in amongst it now. Bjarne
Riis getting out of the car there. In fact, looked like Kim Anderson was the team manager there who was getting that sorted out. He's got a teammate alongside him. He's on a slightly smooth section of road here, but not very further up the road, Phil, is that next 1,500 metres, followed immediately by the Molenberg. They've got to get back into the race now, and quick.
Well, at least he's got a teammate to give him a hand here, to drag him back up. Well, that's a great relief. Meanwhile, at the front here, you've got Team Sky. They really are along Kirkgate, bouncing on these pedals. And there are 4 riders from Sky here. Arveson is absolutely astounding me. How this man, just coming back from a broken collarbone, is riding so well today is absolutely tremendous. But there's 4 in a row. Cancellara is just behind. He's pushed himself right through to the front.
He's a strong man, and he's motivated here this afternoon, and that's why he's dragged himself right up to the front. But the big question now is, can Matti Breschel get himself back into the fold?
Well, this is Kalilov here, Mikhailo Kalilov, and don't those cameras give you marvellous images these days, right into his face. It looks as though the cameraman's on his bike, but it's not quite that so.
Well, Phil, talking about Arveson, again, I talked about the coup that Team Sky got by, of course, signing Juan Antonio Fletcher, but also by signing this man, Arveson, because he talked about retirement. Well, this is not bad for another guy who was looking at retirement, riding at the front of the Tour of Flanders and hammering out the pace.
Absolutely. And just off to the right there, Bernard Eisel too, the favourite for HTC Columbia. We haven't seen much of Mark Cavendish today. Early on he was at the tail of the bunch and didn't look too happy. I have to say, though, that Team Sky have really ridden well. Now, this is the chase of Breschel down there, is it?
Yeah.
Still trying to get them into contact. It's going to be, in fact, he's sitting up there at the moment. I wonder if he's developed another problem.
Well, no, he's not panicking. The best thing to do is allow a number of cars to come in front of you, then use the cars slowly, because the race referees will turn a blind eye if you use each car that's in front of you by 10, 15 seconds, and that allows you to get back into the main field without really digging too much into your reserves and pushing too hard. And then you can... might take a little bit longer to get yourself into the main field, but it's a lot easier way of doing it.
Well, this man here, Matthew Heyman, today has ridden like 10 men for Team Sky. He's been driving the front of this peloton and riding extremely well indeed. Sky today have looked like a complete team. This is the best I've ever seen them ride. I know they've only been going since January, but I've never seen them ride so well as today.
Well, they were pretty impressive in the Cancer Classic in Adelaide in January, but that's not quite the same level of race as the race that we're witnessing here this afternoon, and they have ridden like a top international Pro Tour squad.
They most certainly have. I'm just trying to see if I can just catch any other favourites in this group at the moment. George Hincapie certainly here and looking very cool and collected. I think he'd be very pleased with the race so far today.
Well, they're all there. Leif Hostel just a little bit further up behind him. Cancellara at the front end of the main field. Bonen, Hincapie. These guys are all staying very close to the front.
Still looking for Hushoff now. They've just found him. No?
Yes.
Is that him there?
Yeah.
Second wheel?
Yeah. Looks as if he's got a problem as well, and that's Dominic Roland trying to pace him back.
Then he must have been in the group. We didn't see him, but he's now got a problem, and unless he's actually coming across the gap. Our camera just picking him out. He's behind this long line of riders here, which is getting slightly bigger at the moment. 51 kilometers to go. Now, what's the next obstacle?
Well, the next obstacle is the Molenberg, and that was part of the change in the race here this year. They switched it around and putting it a little bit later on. It's only a 300-meter climb, 15%, but it's a climb that in the past has been very decisive. And the idea of putting this 3.5 kilometers of cobblestones in between the two was to try and make sure that there wasn't such a big group going into the Molenberg.
Well, Lars Boom is still in this group, 101, sitting at the back. Good number, that, isn't it, 101? As he sits right at the back of the race, who could surprise. He surprised everybody in Paris-Nice in the Prologue time trial. And he's been a world champion at cyclocross. Matthew Heyman just getting on with the job, but the guys forget to follow him here, so he's going away a little bit. And that's Lance Armstrong, far left of our picture. Also riding in the right place at the right time without doing too much work.
Well, the interesting thing about Armstrong in the race today, Phil, is he doesn't have to do anything. He's not riding as a favourite. He's not riding to win the Tour of Flanders. He can ride a race and enjoy it and see how the race develops, and that may well pay out into his advantage later on.
Well, we've only got 50 kilometres. It looks like decision time for me will come on the Mur de Grammont, but hey, what do I know? It could happen at any moment here.
Well, it could happen at any moment on any of these climbs. The Molenberg is going to be climb number 10. In the past, the break has gone on the Lederberg. It's gone sometimes on the Berendries or the Ten Boss. But you could be right. It may well be the big decision on the Mur de Grammont. Thor Hushovd certainly is having a little bit of a hard time, and that's him there, and I'm not quite sure why. He may be right. He may well be struggling to try and get himself back into this race, but they've allowed Matty Heyman a bit of freedom.
This is quite an interesting move here for the Commonwealth Games road race champion. 4 years ago was the last time he won a race. That was it in Melbourne. It was a great occasion. And now Matty Heyman pushing on for his new team, Team Sky. He's throwing a little bit of a diversionary tactic out here as we hit another 800 I need to say kilometres, wouldn't want that. 800 metres of cobbles.
Well, he's being chased by Armstrong.
Well, that is amazing. Armstrong is really warming to the occasion now, as he always has enjoyed cobblestones. But this man has gone every which way you can think about. Tom Bonan's recognised the danger of Armstrong because he's joined the back of the group here. 4 riders trying to go clear. Armstrong joining in. Is that Leif Hoster as well?
Well, this is a bit of a move here. Matt Heyman just rode off the front, and everyone ignored him because he's one of the team helpers of Team Sky. But then all of a sudden Armstrong said, well, let me test my legs here this afternoon. And he came out immediately matched there by Tom Bonan, but it's all come back together. Everybody now, Phil, is going to be a little bit more attentive and a fraction more alert. That was Philippe Gilbert in the group.
Philippe Gilbert it is, in the white jersey. They've changed the colours this year, the Omega Farm Lotto squad. But he's right there, third in this event last year, a man for the one-day classics. He's one of the riders with the ability to ride both well here on the cobblestones of Flanders and also in the mountains or hills of the Ardennes down in Liège, where we're going in a couple of weeks.
Big man from BMC. We've talked a lot about George Hincapie, the US national champion, but the other big man on that squad, Alessandro Ballan, he's finished second in this race in the past. No, he's second in Paris-Roubaix in the past.
In fact, he's won this race a couple of years ago, as he now is on a good team here to try and give a little bit of one-day impetus to his new team of BMC. 49 kilometres to go. That effort by Armstrong has caused a little bit of disarray now. It has split the field up a little bit as they continue on. 4, 5 riders down there, maybe 6 riders trying to get it together. 5.
Yep, they're organising themselves. Ballan won this race in 2007, actually, and he went on to win the World Championships, and I think that was a huge coup by Team BMC to pull him into the squad, making them really one of the very solid classic squads in this race.
Well, the lonely countryside, as they say in horse racing, we're now well out in the country here, and we're watching the leading field in the Tour of Flanders, as this race in a few years' time will celebrate its 100th year of being. Matt Heyman, I've never seen him ride like this. In all honesty, he's inspired by this new Team Sky. He's been a monster all day at the front, and now he's trying to tempt them all out to come and chase him down. Who's going to take up the gauntlet?
Well, you know, they don't let a man like Matty Heyman get a minute or a minute and a half in front, because he could be extremely dangerous. When you won a race like the Commonwealth Games and the road race, you have got the ability to win big bike races. He's a great individual time trialist, and if he's given 30 seconds, if he's given a minute, they may well not pull him back.
Well, that's what Team Sky would love to hear you say there, Paul, because while everybody looks at Fletcher as the team leader, Matty Heyman is sneaking away off the front. This is what's likely to happen when you've got a group containing virtually all of the favourites here. See, the arms are being waved now by that Française de Jeu rider, who is going to counter this move, and I think it's coming from Gilbert.
Well, coming across at Radio Shack as well, are starting to increase in numbers in this group. It is still a fairly large pack of riders, but once they come to the Molenberg, we may well see some serious fireworks. The Molenberg is around about 4 kilometres away.
Well, it's Leaky Gas has also got some good riders still in this breakaway up here. Kuzinski went, but I think we still have riders of the quality of Daniela Benatti, I think, may have matched this split. But it wasn't Gilbert. In fact, it was a quick-step rider who went across. He looked like a white jersey from the helicopter.
Well, it's difficult from the helicopter to spot everything, and there is a nasty little move there, because Bernard Eisel seems to be like the man who slipped in for HTC, and he may well not be a marked man.
Well, he probably is, but who's going to chase him? Because the trouble when you get a bunch of big favourites, they all look to one another to use their energy up, and of course that's how the races are won, in the opposite direction to the fancied riders. But that peloton is chasing just now.
They're stretched out into a long line. Matty Heyman, though, has made this very difficult, this part of the course. They're now looking at 3 kilometres to go to the Molenberg, which is a short climb, and then we start to have a bit of respite, although there are cobbles between the Molenberg and the Lederberg.
Well, no Australians ever won this race, and Matty Heyman's an Australian and right on the front with the 4 now. Best Phil Anderson twice finished second. They used to call him the Kangaroo because he had a great jump. 1985 and 1988 was his times when he finished second, but no Australian has won yet. No,
and it may well be that it could happen. And certainly I would think Matty Heyman now is really still, Phil, just kind of sacrificing himself for the team. It looks to me as if it looks as if somebody's still suffering out of the back there, trying to keep themselves, and there it is. In fact, it's still
Breschel.
It's Breschel.
This has been an awful long chase back. I don't know whether he's going to come back.
It's been hard, I tell you. That's a long chase that this man has put in to try and get himself back into the fold, and I think he's still got Thor Hushovd with him.
He's got Hushovd with him, and whoever came back to help him, he's shed him. So Breschel is not feeling good at the moment. He's just hoping that that little lead group just eases off the gas pedal. But while they've been chasing Heyman, of course, he hasn't been able to repair the damage. This is the group which Heyman has started. Now he's joined by the big hitter here. Bernard Eisel has got himself across. Can't quite understand who that man is from Leaky Gas back there.
It's a good move.
It might be Dall'Antonio who's come up here for Leaky Gas.
Yeah, but you see they're not allowing them too much freedom. There's organisation on the front end of the pack now trying to pull it all back together, and that's not much more than around 5 or 6 seconds, and the fact that they've got themselves organised in the peloton is because they're scared of these riders.
And it is in fact a man on form. Os is really on very, very good form. Bit of a newcomer, but he's obviously making the best of his form at the moment. He's only 23 years of age, but he was 5th in Ghent-Wevelgem, and so for Daniel Os, this might be he's finding he's enjoying these classics here, a long way from home, I must say.
Well, they haven't broken the stranglehold, but the question is which team is going to chase, because as you said on a number of occasions, there are so many big favourites in that group, and everybody will come to a point when they're starting to watch each other to say, well, I don't want to use my team because I'm going to leave them later on, because this has been a very difficult race.
And the quick-step boy, and I haven't seen him doing much work here at all, and I think that's probably to be expected here, Martin Weinens of Quick-Step. He is going to have to just try and be the annoying policeman, I think, because obviously he's riding in favour of Tom Bonen. We are now on the Molenberg. It's only 300 metres, but we've had a nasty stretch as we've come across from the Eichenberg, and at the moment 4 riders trying to forge a lead. Os, Heyman, Eisel and Weinens, but it's still very, very touch and go.
Forget about the 4 men in the lead. As soon as they went round that corner, a certain Tom Bonen came across the gap. He crossed the 10-second gap in no time at all, and there he is. Look, that amazing style of his. He's punching the bike, he's punching the pedals. On the left is Fabian Cancellara. This could be the turning point. This is what they talked about. This is why the organisation have moved it in.
Well, Cancellara is now really turning the screw here, and it comes to the time when his teammate Breschel has not rejoined the group after his problem, and now this is going to open it up. And Bonen realises straight away that fabulous Cancellara is attacking. So we've got the 2 big favourites now clear over the top of the Molenberg.
And we're looking at 44 kilometres to go. The 2 big favourites before the start of this race have decided, right, now's the time to move. Fabian Cancellara has gone with Bonin. There is Fletcher. Hincapie's in there. Eisel is in there. And this is the damage that's been done by the Molenberg.
Well, there's got to have to be a big organisation now for the top teams, because this is a very serious move by Cancellara. Tom Bonin was up for it. He's looking very, very strong. Bonin is twice a winner of this event and looking to join historically those who've won 3.
I notice Armstrong in that group just behind, but this is a powerful, brave move. And who is going to organise the chase behind these 2 super favourites before the start of this event? This man, Fabian Cancellara, has been champion of the world in the individual time trial. He's had the yellow jersey, he's won Paris-Roubaix. He said at the start of this year at the training camp for Team Saxo Bank, I only want to win 1 race this season.
Yeah.
That is the Tour of Flanders. Well, he's got a good chance now.
Well, he's just called Tom Bonin through, and Bonin won't come through at the moment. He's just on the rivet. He cannot push it on. Looks like he just grabbed a bottle off the right-hand side of the road there as well, Bonin. There is a select little group. Can it organise itself now? Remember, Cancellara is the greatest lone riding expert in the world, the most accomplished, and Bonin possibly the best sprinter, and if he's not going to work, what's Cancellara going to do?
I think he just needs to catch his breath, because that was a serious advantage. These 2 riders bridged the gap to a 4-man leading group on the climb of the Molenberg. Tom Bonin, probably a fraction into the red zone now, has recovered and he's moving to the front. The organisation now, you've got Fletcher in 2nd place, Hincapie in 3rd place, Eisel in 4th place there. These guys have got to get themselves organised if they're going to pull back those guys. Leading the charge behind is Lance Armstrong on that 3rd group on the road.
The bridge is coming across to this very select little group of riders here. Now, George is also going to have to concern himself here. He was on the same team, don't forget, of Eisel last year, HTC Columbia. Now they're rivals, although they're still good friends. Now let's have a quick span across the road. There is the Tour of Flanders. Somebody has thrown a bomb in the pack. They are spread across the Flanders flatlands now, shortly to become the Flanders Hills again.
Well, can I just tell you one thing, Phil? Thanks very much to the organisation for switching the Molenberg round, putting those cobblestones in the middle, because I reckon they've got a pretty good recipe here now.
Well, this has been a great race from the start today. The peloton has never been together, never been content. These 2 top men, the 2 favourites, joint favourites at the start, are now leading the charge with 43 kilometres to go to the finish. Tom Bonin, I think at the moment he can do nothing but hang on to the flying back wheel there of Fabian Cancellara.
But these 2 men have got a similar capacity. They've got the similar ability to ride hard in a race like this, Phil. So they won't hold anything back. They will try and duke it out later on. They will make this their chance of a crack at winning the race.
We have a Swiss-Belgium tandem on Easter Sunday in Flanders. Will they stay away? Now that's a question.
Well, the question must be asked by a lot of the riders in this group, because there, Bernard Eisel, one of the pre-race favourites. This group has lost its momentum. Team Sky have done a lot of work to set themselves up to this point, but now they're going into a bit of disarray, a bit of discussion there. Cancellara, Bonin, they're opening up the gap to 15 seconds. They cannot allow these 2 men to ride away, because if it gets to a minute for those 2 leaders, they will not see them again.
10 hills behind the field now, 5 hills still to come, including the Brute, the Mur de Grammont. And the favourites have gone, for me, a little bit early, and they're going to have to live now for the best part of 42 kilometres out in front. That's about 26 miles. And still Tom Bonin isn't sharing the pace with Cancellara. Oh, thank you, Tom, as he goes through.
Well, let me tell you one thing as well about hard men of the sport. Bonin is a pretty hard man. You've seen these riders very often they wear track mitts or gloves. Bonin has decided over this cobblestone race today to throw them away and ride old style.
Blisters and all, because he'll certainly have blisters on those big palms of his hands by the time he gets to the finish today, gripping the bars over these cobblestones. But look at that, Tom goes through, and hardly has he gone through, and Cancellara says no, it's not fast enough, and he's gone through and lifted the pace again. 18 seconds, they're nosing out. It's decision time, Paul, for this chase group, otherwise they might be waving goodbye to first and second.
Well, they need to get themselves organised. That is
They're reforming.
It's a big group, but that's a big group. Philippe Gilbert now sees the danger. Fletcher in second, Hincapie, all the big names are looking at this bike race, but this is not the way to pull back that 2-man breakaway. You need to get organised, you need to get 2 lines, everybody sharing the pacemaking.
Well, Gilbert is there. I'm trying to just see who is the rider there from Astana. I've got a feeling it is probably Grivko. It certainly isn't Alan Davis, but he's in this group anyway. As we see the field now, still around 25, 26 riders strong. but they've got to be better organised than this. They're trying to take on the two best men. There they are. That's the spread at the moment on the Tour of Flanders. 5 climbs are still to come. They've really made the move, and they're going to be totally committed very soon. Philippe Gilbert, he is in himself an opportunist, but he knows this is a serious move, and he's desperate to reach them.
Another reason he wants to get off the front end of the main field is there's another section of cobblestones coming up in not very long. It's the section called the Mercesstraat, and that's 2 kilometers long. And if Philippe Gilbert can crack off the front of this group, he will use that section of cobblestones to try and bridge the gap to the 2 leaders.
Another critical moment in this year's Tour of Flanders here, as 3 riders try to reach 2 leaders. It's causing panic and disarray behind. The strong will out now as they get to the front. They know that they've got to reach these riders quickly and forget the rest of the field. They're getting tired back there, and they mustn't let these 2 out of sight.
Well, they've got to do something special now, Phil, as you can see David Miller coming across for Garmin Transitions there.
Well, he's done well to get
the gap to these riders, but you'll also cast your mind back to the 2 riders in the lead. We're talking about Cancellara, we're talking about Bonen, the best cobblestone riders in the world. There's a 2 kilometer section of cobblestones coming up right now.
Well, I looked at some of those faces there, boy. They are absolutely on their limit at this moment in time. I saw the face of Leif Hoster back there as well. Here we are. We're on the Harcook. 2,000 meters now of cobblestones. Cancellara gets to the front and stamps on those pedals. We are looking at 2 winners of the greatest classic of cobbles of all, Paris-Roubaix. They've both got a cobblestone back home as champions. Now they're on home territory.
Well, Tom Bonen has got 2 actually, and he really does love that bike race, and these 2 men certainly know how to fly. This group again, Phil, has swelled up a fraction, and I think that is advantage to the 2 leaders, because once this group starts to get too big, there'll be passengers, and then everybody won't want to put in 100% effort. They'll put in 95% effort, giving the advantage to these 2 men who took stranglehold of the race at 44 kilometers to go. That's a long way.
Well, this is the race, Paul. Look at the splits we've got on our hands now, and David Miller driving on here, reliving his youth here. This man who's arrived for Garmin Transitions, coming away from the cobblestones of De Panne, literally just down the road, which he ran out as a brilliant winner. And now he's settling in. This is the strength of the race. George Hincapie is in here, about 5 men down in those white shorts. Another brilliant race read by George. If this group can get across to the 2 leaders, this lot will be out of it back there.
I think they certainly will. Fletcher is there as well in the black jersey of Team Sky, and they need to get themselves organised. It's only 15 seconds. This is an extremely brave move by these 2 riders, and Bonen knows it. He won't hold anything back, because if he can stay in contact with Fabian Cancellara, he has got a very, very good chance of making this win number 3 in the Flanders.
Absolutely, and joins the elite. Only 4 riders have ever won this race 3 times, and one isn't the great Eddie Merckx, by the way. He's only won it twice. Now this is the leaky gas rider who's now seems to have himself a problem. This is Kinziato, it was.
He was a great track
rider.
rider.
I think he's got a flat back tyre. Now, when your luck is out, that is a great shape.
It certainly is, and that's why it's always extremely tough, and that's why you've got to make sure there's going to be no help coming there from Stijn de Volder, who's in this group. He, on this occasion, is going to have to play the second fiddle for Team Quickstep, and that's the advantage of having a tough team and having somebody alongside, because if now Tom Bonen gets caught, de Volder will go.
And de Volder's sitting there. He's read the race. They said he had great form and he was training in De Panne. He wasn't intending in getting amongst the prizes at all, but just riding hard, hurting himself, resting up and coming here. And there he is right now. So this is a very interesting race right now as we look here. Fletcher is still here, Hincapie is still here, and the rider from Astana still eludes me, but I have a feeling it's Grivko.
Well, also another rider coming in there from Team Quickstep. Quickstep in a good position now. They've got 2 riders in that group. They will become passengers. They won't work. They'll just sit there, and hopefully instead of being passengers, they would like to become anchors.
Here we go. We're on to the Leberg. This is Leberg now. This will leave 4 climbs are still to come. The terrific duo, the 2 past winners of Paris-Roubaix, are now trying to stamp their authority right here on the Tour of Flanders. They've edged out a little bit, 22 seconds, but there's now a chase group forming. George Hincapie is in it, David Miller is in it, and Stijn de Volder, last year's winner and the years before, is in it. But he can't chase because Tom Bonen up front's his teammate.
Well, 2 riders in it from Lotto Pharma as well, because on the front is Leif Hoster. Just in the 4th position is Philippe Gilbert. Gilbert tried to jump across the gap on his own, and I thought that was the wrong tactic. And what it did was it put everybody under pressure. And once Gilbert got caught, they had to have a little bit of respite in the main field, and that's why the gap has gone up to 25 seconds. These are the faces of two men who've decided to take the risk of going for a long escapade in this race this afternoon. Former world champion Tom Bonan on the left-hand side there takes a bottle from a friend or supporter from the side of the road. He probably knew that bloke, but this is a long way out. It's a brave move, and if it succeeds, it will have been a heroic move.
The flotilla now of motorcycles come around the two leaders here on the narrow roads of Belgium. The two top favourites of the day have projected themselves very early on. 37 kilometres to go. We've still got 4 big climbs to come, and this chase group, which has organised itself through the impetus of Miller, who is now sat at the back with the orange top on his jersey, are now still far from out of this race, but it's coming as though they're the only people now who have any chance of altering the result.
Well, De Volder's got a big part to play in this race now, Phil. He just has to sit behind everybody and break up the organisation of any chase. That rider is Steve Scheinel from B-Box, and he's a rider who's risen to fame this year because this is really one of the first years he's starting to do much.
It is absolutely right. He's only won 3 races in his life, and the race he won this year was this week in the 3 days of the Panna, when he opened up with the first day win, and he held the lead for that day, of course, as well. Now these riders, and Lance Armstrong is also right on the front, beginning to look a little bit beaten, I feel, just here, as they begin to think that the chase and the two leaders are now the races for first place. Armstrong has ridden well. He should be pretty happy, I think, with the way he's gone today, and he's still willing to set the pace, but I think we've seen the last of Lance and this group at the sharp end of the race. 25 seconds now the gap between the first two groups. I suppose you call 2 riders up front a group.
I certainly would, and especially a possible winning group. Down to 24 seconds. It's come the other way now, but just around the corner, once they go through the small town of Mikkelbeek, they will start the next climb number 12 of the day, and that is the Berendries.
Fabian Cancellara, there's no question he's doing most of the work in this group, and he's doing a much faster cadence when he gets there. We're into Elst now. 36 kilometres on the finish, looking for the last 4 climbs, and of course the penultimate climb is the Muur de Grammont, and he looks as though David Miller, he's so anxious to reach these leaders, he's going to make a profit of his great form. Miller is now pushing on, and he's causing a reaction.
Well, the reaction's coming from Stijn de Volder. He will pull everything back here. His job today is completely different to his job of last year, when he was the man out on the attack and having Tom Bonan get locked up in the chase group behind it. This is where all of a sudden Team Quickstep are in a very strong position, but that's a great move by David Miller, coming off a very good win. He said he feels so confident after winning the 3 days of Le Panne, after winning the individual time trial there as well. It's as if he's got a renaissance.
33 years of age and a totally different rider now. He's really finding his rebirth. You're absolutely right, Paul. He's never had a good finish in the Tour of Flanders, but his confidence cannot be dented, and clearly to go at this stage of the race at 35 kilometres out, he is feeling very good indeed. If the boys won't help him, he's going to go by himself.
Well, he obviously feels, you know, when you're a professional bike rider, you feel in a group when all of a sudden the impetus and the desire to chase has gone out of it, and he's seen that. He knows who the 2 guys are in front. I think everybody in the world of professional cycling knows who the 2 guys are in front, and he's decided to have a crack.
So Eisel is now trying, another favourite here, trying to have a go. But this is the group further back, and Lance Armstrong right on his back wheel. This is the 3rd group behind the first group behind Miller group at the moment. So I'm not sure how Eisel got himself back here, but he missed the split.
Well, he did, but he's a rider who won't give up either, and it's amazing to see how a lot of the teams now are starting to be reduced in numbers, and that's why this race is certainly far from done.
Well, looking at the way Lance Armstrong is riding, he's riding as well as I've ever seen him ride in this event, in all honesty. So as we look here, this is Group 3 on the road. We've got 2 leaders. David Miller trying to make contact. Lance Armstrong still far from out of touch at the moment.
Well, Armstrong, I think, is enjoying his Ronde van Vlaanderen here this afternoon. Now we can't be too very far away, Phil, from getting to the climb of Berendries. It's at 34 kilometres to go. It says 34 kilometres to go at the top, so this must be it. It's a climb of around about a kilometre, maximum 12.3%.
There we are, Berendries. We're ticking the climbs off now, and they're still clear here by 25 seconds. Tom Bonan is now dancing on those pedals. The concentration of the Swiss champion just behind him here, and David Miller is slowly but surely crossing the gap. At least he's leaving behind the rest of the race, but I don't think he's closing the gap.
Well, this is the time to do it on the slopes of a climb like the Berendries if he can, and looking down there you can see that now This is the big move by Tom Bonin, Fabian Cancellara. They've been in the lead now for a good 11 kilometres and still 33 kilometres to go, and big climbs ahead of them. Berendries, which they're on, followed by Ten Bosch, but then of course followed by the one that scares everybody, the Muur de Grammont or the Kappelmuur, and the final one of the day, the Bosberg.
And that's when we might see the decisive move, or have we already seen the first move made today with the attack by Bonin and Cancellara. David Miller has felt it's the one because he's had to leave the rest of the chase and try and cross the gap by himself. Stein de Volder is in this group, but he's hampered now. He can't do much about it. Armstrong is not far off reaching it, along with Bernard Eissel. And Philippe Gilbert is here. But they're looking like guys who are setting the pace, but they've got to think of attacking now. They can't just set the pace.
Well, this is the group of Armstrong. There's Armstrong over on the right-hand side. That is their third group on the road. This is the second group on the road, and again Gilbert. He wants to jump across that gap. He's panicking, but have a quick look at the gap there, Phil. It's 50 seconds to the Armstrong group, 25 seconds to this group, and still the two leaders are building on their advantage.
Well, I think it's 51 to this group. I think they're calling Miller a group in between now.
It could be.
So it's nearly a minute sped. Miller's made the right move, I feel, but can he get across? The master time trialist who won a time trial stage of the Tour of Spain last year. He sewed up the 3 days of the Panna with a great time trial on the last day on Sunday. Now, can he time trial to the two strongest men in the race so far, Tom Bonin and Fabian Cancellara? There is Miller, and he's been joined very rapidly here. Well, Gilbert's got him.
Well, Gilbert has gone for this. He knows this is a big chance to try and get himself across the gap. And Miller, I think as soon as he saw that man coming across, thought, well, I could do with a bit of help, because it's a long ride across this gap to the two leaders, Cancellara and Bonin.
Well, Loikemans of Vacances-Soleil, it's always the way, isn't it? When you don't get selected for the Tour de France, then you show the organisers how good you really are. But Bjorn Loikemans here has got onto the back with Gilbert. And now three are surely better than one. Give Miller a rest now and start to try and work together and make it five strong men in the lead. There we are, left the two leaders, right the three chasers. The sped is 32 seconds. They're still pulling away, so it's up to Gilbert to add some impetus.
Well, 6 kilometres now separate the two climbs. Its next climb of the day is going to be the Ten Bosch, and that's what these two riders will try and do. They try and build on their advantage, but they are so much stronger on the cobblestone sections, the two riders we're looking at on the left, and on the climbs, and that's where they keep building their advantage. The gaps are prizing open slowly. 32 seconds to the Miller group, 44 seconds further back.
Well, that's the shortcut for you. A little bit of a bunny hop and back onto the road by a man that lives on these very roads of Belgium, Tom Bonin. Cancellara wondered where he'd gone there for a moment. Just take another look at this then. As you see the flag, they're turning into a tailwind. Is there anybody who can nail these two back now before the finish?
Very interesting move there by Tom Bonin. A half a minute is their advantage. They will have to battle together to try and open up at least a minute to feel safe by the time they get to the Muur de Grammont. They're not too far away now, Phil, from the climb of Ten Bosch, and that's now, I would say, approximately 4 kilometres away from them. Ten Bosch is a difficult climb in the past. The riders have laid the foundations for victory there. This is the chase group, 34 seconds. I think with David Miller and with Philippe Gilbert in it, they've got a good chance of starting to eat into that advantage.
The man at the back, Bjorn Loikemans, finished 8th in this race last year, so he's no surprise to be in the chase now. The man taking up back position finished 3rd, Philippe Gilbert. David Miller, he is the man on form. He's never had a good finish in Flanders. I'm not even sure he's ever finished the race, but I might be doing him an injustice there. Either way, he's riding superbly today, but the gap is still being prized open by the world time trial champion.
Well, those men are great champions and great fighters. This is the next group on the road. Hincapie there, champion of the United States. He's locked in this group with Stein de Volder. De Volder will do nothing at all. In fact, he'll do whatever he can to try and slow down the organisation. Defending champion, he was looking at 3 in a row this morning, and now he has to take the back seats to try and defend the chances of his leader of this occasion, Tom Bonin.
Well, that is a very, very select little group here, but I think it's lost its pressure. And I think that the riders up front have made the right decisive move, that they've got to catch up with those two leaders. It's soon going to be 5 riders versus the rest. A little bit of an attack there, and it looks like it's Scott Davies on the front for Astana.
Well, this is the second group on the road, and all of a sudden, have a quick check of that time gap, Phil. It's up to 42 seconds, almost 3/4 of a minute. These don't look now like men who have got the impetus to try and pull back that breakaway. They're just trying to survive, I think, off the front end of the group behind them.
Well, they're settling into a rhythm. That was a long, empty road ahead, and that is so depressing when you're chasing to try and pick up the leaders. These boys, George Hincapie now trying to pedal away. He realises it's now or never. There's 30 kilometres to go. There's big hills to come. If you've got any strength left, you've got to use it now, because otherwise you're going to finish up in this group and you're going to lose 2 minutes.
Well, that's Steve Chanel, the guy we were talking about just a little earlier, a big beast of a boy from B-Box Telecom, and he, I think, is going to be one of the revelations for me of today's stage. Yes, he won a stage in the 3 days of La Panne, but riding at this level in the Tour of Flanders is a different level.
Well, that Astana ride, I think it's Scott Davis, which will be a terrific ride if it is, but he certainly rides with the style of the Davis brothers, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's Alan, but he wants people to come through. The way he's looking over his shoulder now, I think that's Scott.
Well, Hincapie now has seen the lack of organisation and said, right, well, I'm off as well myself, because I really want a good crack. The legs are good here this afternoon.
Now, this is the problem. They've found the strength to ride back to the three attackers, but they're not pushing on, and they're going to lose more time here, and that's why Davies is getting a little bit upset with the way the race is going. 50 seconds now, but that's not to this group. This group is now well over a minute back.
That's 50 seconds is on that group just around the corner, and that's the group with Philippe Gilbert, who's in
10
there.
seconds, 15 seconds maybe.
Not very much at all. And sitting on the back, David Miller, who'll be looking to a great performance for Great Britain if he can get himself up to the leading group of riders. It's been a long time since a Brit has been at the front end of Tour of Flanders.
Tommy Simpson won it, the only British cyclist ever to have won this race, and this is the race that many cyclists want to add on the honours list. It's the one that Sean Kelly never won. He got a couple of second places and still the best result for Ireland, but he never got to win this race. He was very unhappy about that, because he won all of the world's major classics, but never the Tour of Flanders.
Phil, we are sitting down here looking to a grand finale, and I tell you what, as we get closer and closer to the finish line, as we go through Brakel, which every professional bike race in Belgium seems to go through, the Belgians will come out of their houses to watch this bike race, because they will want to cheer on their national champion. And Fabian Cancellara will have the people in Switzerland out in the streets, I think, celebrating.
Well, this is the adopted home of Robbie McEwen. He might be stopping off early today because he's now behind the race. Also Peter van Petegem, another great winner of this event. He lived here, or lives here, no longer races. But they are watching the champion of Belgium and the champion of Switzerland, I think, tear this field apart. They are moving smoothly to the first minute over the nearest chasers. That third group of Hincapie is now at 67 seconds. Soon they're going to have to think about, how am I going to beat the other guy in this breakaway?
Well, Bonin has got his head back together now. He's moved permanently back down to Monaco to live there.
That's what you do with your old bicycle wheels.
Excellent idea. He's moved back down to finish the story on Bonin Phil. He's moved back down to Monaco, and he's got himself sorted out. He's training hard. He's dedicated. I think he's got himself back into the frame of mind that you have to have as a champion. But he's going to wonder whether or not he can stay with Fabian Cancellara when they go over the Mur de Grammont, which is going to be the real test time.
Well, the last time he did any performance of note in the Tour of Flanders, he won it back in 2006. Most of the time since then he hasn't really ridden, but he's now back in the thick of it here. And Fabian Cancellara just wants a big result, and he advertised it. He said he wanted to win this race. He's come here thoroughly prepared and not afraid to make a move very early on to take it away from the rest.
I just think the way the race was developing, that you had to be brave and take that chance of going a long way out, and the fact is that the two of them together are extremely strong riders, almost matched talents, the pair of them, and they won't hold anything back. Bonin will do what he can, because he knows if it comes down to the sprint he's got a chance of the win, and of course Cancellara will think, well, I'm a little bit stronger on the climbs than this man with me today, and I can get rid of him on the Mur de Grammont. So that, I think, is going to be test time.
Well, Cancellara's never podiumed. His best ever finish is 6th in this event, but I think after his way he won in the Grand Prix E3 in this region the other day, we all know he's got the great form. So the Olympic champion of the time trial and of the World Championship. We are now on the climb of 10 Boss. We're ticking them off. We've got the Bosberg, the Mur de Grammont still to come. The climb of 10 Boss, and Paul, it's like opening a can of worms. We're slowly prizing that lid off. It's now 52 seconds to the chase group of Miller, Loikemans and Gilbert, and the Hincapie group now has gone back to 74 seconds.
Well, it's Fabian Cancellara on the front, 171, the national champion of Switzerland. first time in his career he actually has won the road race national championships. But do you think the Belgians are happy that their national champion is in the lead?
Well, they feared, well, they're very happy that their national champion's in the lead, but they feared this national champion at the back in red at the start. He was on the mouths of every Belgian spectator, the one man they felt could spoil the party today. Well, neither's let anybody down at the moment. They have shown us to be the two strongest riders by the very manner in which they've broken clear with 44 kilometres to go. David Miller's got himself a little working group there, but they're not getting any closer. In fact, to the contrary, they're losing ground.
I have to say, I felt that Cancellara was looking a little bit smoother there on the slopes of that climb than Tom Boonen. Boonen using a bigger gear, using the power that he has, but he is a powerful rider. Cancellara looking a lot more supple, and that would indicate that he may well be the strongman when it comes through to the Mur de Grammont, and that climb is in 10 kilometres time.
And I think that's the answer. I can't go to the finish line with Tom Boonen. I think Boonen will take him. He's got to leave him. And well, I think he's right, it's got to be on the Muir.
He's got to get rid of Tom Boonen. Boonen is a bunch sprinter. He knows how to sprint, whether it's from a one-man, two-man group or a bigger group. But that, I think, has got to be the scenario for Fabien Cancellara. He's got to try and put the nail in the coffin of Tom Boonen on the slopes of the Mur de Grammont.
Well, this is the third group on the road at the moment. They're about 20 seconds, if that, behind. The Miller group just over 20 seconds according to the clock. George Hincapie working very hard just in front of camera there. This is the second group now. Miller is still working with Philippe Gilbert and Bjorn Leukemans. Leukemans finished 8th in this Tour of Flanders last year, while the man at the back finished 3rd, Philippe Gilbert. And who knows, he could be racing, well, he is racing for 3rd at the moment, and he could well go himself on the Mur de Grammont.
Well, Leukemans also a rider who finished 4th in Paris-Roubaix back in 2007, so he's no stranger to the classic cobbles, and that's why he's managed to slip into this move. It has got firepower, but it doesn't seem to have the dedication that the two men at the front have. They're, I think, probably feel resigning themselves to ride for 3rd place.
I'm beginning to get the feeling they got very close. Miller got close on his own within 23 seconds of these two. But then it all went a little bit wrong, and I think he realised on the long straight roads he wasn't getting any closer. Now it's 55, but they're holding at 55. They haven't really lost anything this last couple of kilometres. Tom Boonen just doing enough to keep the pace up here, but it's Cancellara who is driving on. When he finished the World Championship road race, he sat on the floor of the finishing line last October in Mendrisio, virtually in tears. Because he was in Switzerland, he wanted so much that World Road title. He'd easily taken the time trial title, but it was the road title he wanted. Cadel Evans rode away with it. Cancellara was a broken man. You could literally have fallen over him. He was lying on the finishing line for 20 minutes.
Very emotional. He was probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest rider in the event, and I think everybody knew that, and everybody marked him and matched him, and that is sometimes why it's very difficult to win races in the sport of professional cycling, because not always does the strongest man win. But I have to say, I think we are looking at the two strongest men here.
I feel that the way they went, the riders were there to go with them, and they simply could not do it. Two great cyclists with big reputations, now showing us really what they're made of here. Swapping turns at the front, but 3 seconds back to the advantage of the chasers. They've got it down to 52. It is not done for yet. I just feel that Gilbert will try one of his famous lone attacks towards the finish, and who knows what will happen then. I just get the feeling that Boonen is not feeling as good as Cancellara.
Well, Cancellara looks better, I'd have to say, and Boonen is strong because he led a very strong ascent there with that previous climb, the climb of 10 Boss. But Cancellara just looks more relaxed. His pedaling style is smoother, it's much more supple, although he's a man who's also got a big engine inside that body of his, and I think he's got the ability to make the difference on the Mur de Grammont, and that's where he's going to try something special. With 23 kilometres to go, we're around about 7 kilometres to go to the Mur de Grammont.
Well, both riders at 29 years of age here, as they just in complete tandem. The team cars are now with them. Boonen looks for his concentration, wondering, I think, how am I going to beat this guy? What will I do if he launches a big attack? Well, I think at 51 seconds, yes, the chasers are nosing the way back in, but the front of the race is very much here, and we've still got the Mur de Grammont to come.
Cancellara, as soon as he feels that it's slowing down a fraction, happy to come to the front, but you can see he's always using a slightly smaller gear than Boonen. Boonen is using all of the power that he's got, but he's now got to try and get into his mind. How am I going to stay with Cancellara on the slopes of the Mur de Grammont, which is, it's a beast of a climb. We're ticking away the kilometres to get there. It's a climb that goes up full to 20% in gradient. It gets harder and harder, and in recent years, since they used to go to the top of the Mur de Grammont, they put in the chapel climb on the top, which takes it up just that little bit higher, and that can break many men. And has broken many men.
It has indeed, but will he break these two? It's a great place if you've got the strength to put in nails in the coffin, but I'm not too sure there's no question who that man of Flanders is supporting. He didn't even notice Fabian Cancellara as he shouted at Tom Bonen. Well, great crowds as we expected today.
Yep, on the road now down to Grammont, or Gerardsbergen in the Flemish language, and that's where the Great Mur is. And on the summit of that Mur, there's many foundations have been laid to get themselves a victory. Tommeke just shaking his hands a little bit there. I'm sure the Belgian commentators at the moment are shouting that famous line, Tommeke, Tommeke, Tommeke.
Yes. Well, he's certainly given a happy Easter Sunday to the Belgian people in any case, but look at those clouds ahead again here at the finishing line. It's looking very much like rain, but so far they've got away with it today, which is amazing, because when we went to the start this morning it was torrential rain and not the day you wanted to be a professional cyclist, but it's come good. This is the third group on the road, containing George Hincapie in the white shorts there, the champion of the USA. And Scott Davis just in front of him. I'm pretty sure it's Scott. I'd love to see him. I can't see his face at the moment. But if it's not Scott, then it is my original choice of Maxim Iglinski. 22 kilometers to go for the two leaders. The gap is narrowly down again. 50 seconds for the three chasers of Miller, Gilbert and Bjorn Leukemans. But is there any way of stopping the two national champions steamrolling the roads of Flanders today?
I'll tell you what, Phil, these boys are not going to slow down, and they are not going to weaken. That gap is still pegged, though, at around about the 50-second margin to the two riders behind, and maybe if Philippe Gilbert has got anything in those legs of his, he can make a move and try and bridge it on the run into the finish from the Mur de Grammont. But these are two strong riders. They're the V8s of the sport of professional cycling, although sometimes I think that looking at Fabian Cancellara, he could very well be a V12.
Now, how are they thinking, Paul? I mean, they know what the Mur de Grammont is like. They've ridden it before and they know what's going to come. They're going to hit each other with everything they've got left in the ammunition box. They're going to be very nervous. These are the three chasers. They're holding at 50 seconds and they're pulling away from the chase group.
The chase group containing George Hincapie there in the white shorts, champion of the United States, riding very well after a fourth place finish just recently in the Ghent-Wevelgem race. And in the blue jersey there and the blue shorts, you can just get a chance to see that the man who won this race last year is playing the position of teammate to the man in the lead, Tom Bonen.
Yes, and it's confirmed there it is Maxim Iglinski in the light blue Astana colours. And as much as I'd love to have seen Scott Davis up here, I was a bit surprised when I thought it was him, but it isn't. The big favourite for Team Sky has made that split there, which is Juan Antonio Fletcher, the only man from Sky left in that group. But does it matter now, because they're at a minute 23 of these two riders who virtually advertised the attack, but then nobody could go with them on the Molenberg. Cancellara, Bonen was very alert, very ready for it, and quickly marked the attack by the Swiss.
Well, the toughness of prizing out this advantage, Phil, was the fact that they were only at 15 to 20 seconds in front of a very big group of riders for over 10 kilometres. Yeah. It was only after that 10 kilometre chase that it started to prize out by a few seconds at a time, and it's only really in the last few kilometres that it stretched up to this 53 second mark.
Well, it's slipped back for the chasers now. They've gone from 50 to 53, so the reverse is happening again. These boys just getting on with the job now. Once they've decided they've cracked everybody else, they're going to have to start thinking how they're going to crack each other. That's the next question. And looking at the way they're riding, marginally for me, the stronger of the two is Cancellara. But of course, if it comes to a sprint, then I'd start putting the money on Tom Bonen. So I feel Cancellara has got to crack Bonen on the Mur de Grammont.
Well, that is what 51 seconds looks like from the air. Those are the three chasers, Gilbert, Leukemans and David Miller, riding an exceptionally good race in what most people, Phil, I would say, would regard as the autumn of his career, because he's much closer to the end of it than the beginning. But he has ridden extremely well this season.
Absolutely fabulous, and the confidence is there. If he just gets even third or fourth, heavens above, that would be a major result for David. Absolutely outstanding for Garmin Transitions as well. So Miller's been a credit to the race so far. Philippe Gilbert will try to go alone. He doesn't really pack a great sprint, although he hasn't been unknown to win big sprints. but he'll have to take Miller on and Bjorn Leukemans. And I would fancy probably Leukemans would get the sprint of those three, but we'll see. There's the journey through the trees now, as we try to pick out the three chasers. It looks a lot further from that level, doesn't it? 51 seconds. It's down to 47 according to the screen. So they're getting themselves into gear again. It's not done for yet. This is the third group on the road, containing George Hincapie, Juan Antonio Fletcher, and last year's winner Stein de Volder and Leif Hoster.
That banner there indicating 20 kilometres to go to the finish, 12 miles of racing, and that little ridge, the dark ridge you can see in the background, that is the climb of Grammont. The Mur de Grammont goes straight up it.
So 18 kilometres to go. Just around the corner is the Mur de Grammont, and believe me, something's going to happen on the wall today, believe it.
Leif Hoster, the man who has finished second in this race on 3 occasions, sitting at the back there, and he has to sit here right now as well because he's defending the position of Philippe Gilbert. This is the final little descent into the town of Grammont. They ride straight across town, up the other side, across the marketplace, and then it starts. And that is where it is there. You can see in those trees the chapel at the top.
They come over that bridge, bottom right, they go through the town centre, they turn left, and they're on the cobblestones of the Muir, which takes us right up over the top here. And there's the little chapel in the woods, and that's where we are, on the bridge now. Now surely Cancellara will not want to take Tom Bone to the finishing line, but he's done so much work with Tom to keep away from the field. We're going towards the Muir with a gap of 44 seconds from the chasing trio.
But Phil, we're looking at two massively talented bike riders, that both been champions of the world at different disciplines. Perhaps the time trial for Cancellara, the road race for Tom Boonen. Boonen will be extremely motivated because he's racing on home turf. He's racing on home roads in front of a home crowd. He will have that added motivation, but he's going to have to do something special today, I think, to stay with Cancellara, who predicted or told the world at the start of this season, I want to win this race. I want the Tour of Flanders.
We're going down one of the most famous roads in Flanders now as we approach the Mur de Grammont. There's been tens of thousands of cyclists ridden down here just so they could turn left and climb the Mur and say they'd done it, but they did it at their own sedate pace. These boys are going to have to do it at full-on racing speed, and Cancellara would like to be rid of Tom Boonen by the top. We approach the left-hand turn now to the climb to the chapel, the climb to heaven indeed, but are they going to go over the top together? Paul, you've ridden up this race. I might be wrong, but I think you've walked up it as well, haven't you?
I have not walked up the Mur de Grammont, actually. I've walked up the Koppenberg, but this climb is a difficult climb. It gets harder and harder. We're going across the marketplace here. We've got the right-hand turn coming up very shortly, and that's when the race really starts to get tough. It's one of those climbs that you ask yourself, what am I doing here? Why am I hurting quite so much?
Look at the face of these two. If they were playing poker, you wouldn't know what hand they held right now. They're not showing any pain. They're just showing cool, calm and collected. They've got to sit in the saddle. This hill gets so steep. If they jump out of the saddle, the wheels will spin. But thankfully, it is dry for the climb, although the clouds are threatening. Fabian Cancellara, I feel, has got to get rid of Tom Boonen on this climb.
That's what he has to do if he wants a certainty of winning the Tour of Flanders here this afternoon. They've gone across the marketplace. They've left that behind them now. They're about to start the final part of the climb.
We are on the climb of the Mur de Grammont. There's the statistics, 9.3%, but look at the maximum gradient, almost 20%, or 1 in 5. And that's where the strong man will out. And it's just before we get up to the chapel. Cancellara has set the pace from the bottom so far.
It's a long time since we've seen two great champions like this battle it out. Now the TV cameras will probably get pulled off to the left-hand side, and no, they've gone through. This is the start of the Mur de Cap. Well, they've got them anyway. Good organisation there. We're on to fixed cameras now because we're on this very narrow part of the climb. It starts to get steeper once they start to move around to the left-hand side. This is the right-hand bend. Once they swing to the left, it really kicks in, and that's where it measures out at 20%.
Well, the crowd are lining the roads. They've been waiting 3 hours here to watch these two come through. They're seeing the champion of Belgium and the champion of Switzerland. David Miller in the spot of bother there now as he unhitches from the three chasers on the climb. That's a shame. But now, is anybody going to find the strength to go? Tom Boonen has gone up to the front now to stamp on those pedals. A little reminder perhaps to Cancellara.
Well, he's trying to show Cancellara there's nothing wrong with me, mate. There's no weakness in Tom Bonan here this afternoon, and if you want to attack me here, I'm going to just show you how much I've got left in these legs of mine. There's a move now by Philippe Gilbert. That's 3rd and 4th on the road. David Miller just trying to survive. The top of the climb, Phil, is at 16 kilometres to go. This is the steep part. This is where the cobbles are rough. They're horrible. The bike is bouncing, and this is the move by Cancellara.
The acceleration of Fabian Cancellara. He's picked up the cadence. Tom's in trouble now. That's an incredible acceleration by Fabian Cancellara, but Tom Bonan knows he's just got to keep him in sight over the top. He'll recatch him if he can, but look at the show of strength by the champion of Switzerland. Look at that gap.
That was an acceleration. That was the steepest part of the climb. That was the 20% gradient, but Tom Bonan now will fight. He will die. He will turn himself inside out, Phil, to try and win this bike race for a 3rd time in his career. But the man who may well spoil the party for the Flanders is the Swiss champion, the man who's just flown the coupe, Cancellara.
Now, what an option for Tom Bonan now. He's now got to pursue the World Time Trial champion and the Olympic Time Trial champion all the way to the finish. So that is not something for the weak-willed, is it? But if anybody's up for it now, Bonan is. Look at the gap he has opened. How did he do that?
He went bang and bang again, and he really turned on the pressure. He looked as if he was extremely supple, and all of a sudden he took it up, Phil, from 40 kilometres an hour to 50 kilometres an hour, and this man now is possessed. And I don't think Bonan is going to see this man again, because, as you've said, time trial champion of the world and of the Olympic Games.
Well, he's given us some great moments. Philippe Gilbert, he needs to do exactly the same right here now. He won't want to take Bjorn Leukemans to the finish either. Gilbert was 3rd last year, and can he repeat the feat this time around? Back down the group, Iglinski is alongside Steen de Volder just there. George Hincapie is the man setting the pace with Fletcher on his back wheel. This is going to be a tough one, and in 4th place there too you've got Martin Weinens, who did the job earlier on to pave the way for Bonan to get out front.
De Volder in that group as well, and he's defending for his teammates, and he probably realises now, whoops, maybe they've backed the wrong man. 16 seconds is the gap between Cancellara and Tom Bonan, and I wonder, with the gap between the Mur de Grammont and the Bosberg, if Bonan has got enough time to pull it back.
Well, Sebastian Langeveld also beginning to struggle just a little bit here as we join the hot pursuit now of 2 of the greatest riders in the world of the one-day classics. Cancellara is delivering a gem today. He has been ultimately the strongest. He had to get rid of Bonan on the climb of the Mur. He's got an enormous gap already, 18 seconds. Sit back and enjoy the greatest time trialist in action.
Well, he's in that time trial position. Look at that. He's not got the clip-on bars that they ride in individual time trials, but he's got his arms right in the middle of the handlebars. He won't look back at all, Phil. He will ride his own individual time trial. I'm sure this has gone through his mind over the last few months. He's been thinking about this. He's been dreaming about this, being in the lead inside of the last 16 kilometres of Flanders.
What a prospect. 15 kilometres he's chosen to go alone. When they attacked originally, they chose 45 kilometres to go in tandem. He's flicking through the chicanes here as if he's driving an F1 racing car. Cancellara is on full fire today. He has given us some great moments in the world of cycling these past few years. This is going to go down as one of the best.
Well, did you see the way? This is the acceleration. Just watch this again. He's got a very low gear in, and all of a sudden he takes the cadence up from 80 revolutions a minute to 100 revolutions a minute, and bang, that's the moment that Tom Bonan cracked. He's trying everything he can here to try and stay in contact, but all of a sudden the gap was gone.
So the gauntlet is on the floor. The World Time Trial champion is free to fly. He's got 13 kilometres to go. Atom Baker is where we are now. 28 seconds rather. That is back to Tom Bonan. 66 seconds is back to Gilbert and to Leukemans. As far as I know, they're still together. But our cameras are getting rather committed now because the whole field is split up.
Well, Bonan won't give up, Phil, but 30 seconds is a tall order inside of the last 10 miles of racing, and you know that he is trying to catch the best individual time trialist in the world. Where you see the cars just in front there ahead of Fabian Cancellara, that is the start of the final climb of the day, the Bosberg.
Well, he's left nothing to the imagination, has he? He started as favourite. He said he was going to win. He said he wanted to win. He wouldn't speak to anybody at the start. He was the last person to sign on, so he could run quickly into the field and not speak to anybody. He's come out totally on fire today. The flags of Belgium fly on Easter Sunday, but it's the Swiss flag on the back here of Fabian Cancellara as he heads to the Bosberg now in the lead. And look at the crowd. Who is the boss of the Bosberg? We are on the lower slopes of the Bosberg. It's not very long, it's less than a kilometre. And there's the banner, the Fabian Cancellara Club. They knew where to stand.
They certainly did. Look at this man powering. He's eating the cobblestones. He's battering out an infernal rhythm here on this final climb of the day. And every kilometre or every metre he goes, he's extending that advantage over Bonin. It's now 39 seconds. The champion of the world in the individual time trial, the Olympic champion from Beijing, I think, Phil, is going to achieve his goal of the season here this afternoon. Team managers coming up alongside him.
Well, it's not for the sake of advertising it. He's told everybody what he was going to do, and he's had the strength to put it home here. As he continues now, 12 kilometres to go, 42 seconds and gaining. This is now Tom Bonin getting onto the same steep slope as he sees Fabian Cancellara's name on the left of the road there now. Meanwhile, coming up towards the summit, he's gritting his teeth, but with every pedal rev, he's heading to victory.
Well, Phil, just cast your mind back to when he had his mechanical incident, because all of the Belgian press this morning told us if you've got a mechanical problem in between the climbs on the way to the Molenberg, you're out of this race. He had a mechanical problem there. His mechanic probably made the best bike change he's ever made in his mechanic's career. It was an 8-second bike change, and Cancellara was back in the race. Now he's in the front of the race. The Bosberg has been crested. The king of the Bosberg today, the boss of the Bosberg, is Cancellara.
The face of Tom Bonin here. Any other country apart from his home nation, he'd have probably sat up and waited for the chasers, but this is Belgium. He's the champion of Belgium, but he's being put in his place today by the champion of Switzerland. And tell you what too, there's another little record in the making now, because there's only ever been one winner from Switzerland in this race, and it was Henri Souter, and the year, Paul, 1923. Even I wasn't here.
That has been a very long wait for Switzerland to get that victory this afternoon, but Bonin won't give up. He can't give up. He's the champion of Belgium, but I tell you what, it looks as if Philippe Gilbert and Lukemans are getting that little bit closer to him, because Bonin hasn't quite crested this climb of the Bosberg.
Well, you know, once the elastic is snapped, he might well slow down here, and Gilbert might well close in on him. Tom Bonin no longer looking fluid. I didn't feel he was actually looking too fluid when he was in the breakaway. He didn't like to do all the pacemaking with Cancellara, because he knew what would happen. He'd be hit on the Mur de Grammont. The British flag flying down there. Nice to see the Union flag, and David Miller sadly just been dropped by Gilbert and Bjorn Lukemans here.
Yeah, but in Tom Bonin's defence, Phil, he was in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
He was in the move. But what can you do when you come up against a man who is hyper motivated for a bike race like this, and who is a great individual time trialist and a powerhouse?
The top of the Bosberg, well, there's no doubt who the boss is, and that is the leader on the road by some distance now, Fabian Cancellara. Those what appear to be slightly built calf muscles stamping out the rhythm on yet another road in another foreign country, and the road to victory now. A minute 28 to the duo who are chasing Tom Bonin, 56 back to Tom Bonin, and Fabian Cancellara will just keep going and not thinking of anything other than speed.
It's quite easy now, Phil, to wind back the videotape and have a look at the work that has been done by Team Saxo Bank. They knew this morning when they came out what their man had in his legs and in his heart this afternoon. That's why O'Grady did the work. That's why everybody else did the work to set this up.
Yep, and they'll be the first to congratulate him when they finish, because they're a long way behind now, but that was always their plan, was to see their favourite launched into orbit. The man who will never give up today, Tom Bonin. Easter Sunday in Belgium, 10 kilometres to go. That'll be for the leader, and there he goes. 10 kilometres, 6 miles to the world time trial champion. What's it going to take him? About
12 minutes,
12
I reckon.
minutes at the most. Have you included the uphill finish?
I've included the
12
uphill
minutes
finish,
to go.
But the speed of this man, he will be not very far short of 55 kilometres an hour on his run into the finish this afternoon. He knows all about, look how he keeps getting himself low and looking at the gears. He will have the pain going through those legs, but when you're in a position like this, when you've got a minute advantage in the Tour of Flanders, which is your goal and your dream, you can push that pain just a little bit further back. You can hold it just a little bit longer than you might have been if you were in second position on the road. Well,
we are missing Tom Bonin joining the famous 4 people who have won this race 3 times. Arkiel Buis, Eric Lemont, Fioreni Magni, Johan Museo was the last one to win 3, 93, 95 and 98. But we are witnessing now only the second Swiss cyclist in history to win this race, and the first since 1923. Unthinkable.
Certainly unthinkable. That's the gap, the secure gap that he's got over the second man in the race, Tom Bonen. That's a long, wide road, winding road to Bonen. And I think Bonen will continue to try and stay in front because he's got the pride and he will want to hold on to a guaranteed second place rather than waiting to Philippe Gilbert and Bjorn Leukemans.
He's got to stick to his guns now. He can't allow anybody to come up because that will affect him wholesalely. He doesn't look like a man who's waiting for anybody right now. He's got time in his hand, 37 seconds on the two chasers behind him.
He will have to fight. He'll turn his body inside out, but this man still looks fluid. It still looks calm. There's no signs of any weakness at all. Sitting a little bit forward on his saddle there. That's to try and get as much power as he can into those thighs of his, as you often say, are turning into great bicycle pistons to push him along at almost 50 kilometers an hour on this stretch.
He's almost relaxing here now as he rides down the centre of the road. He's certainly been a proud man wearing that National Road Champions jersey for the first time in his life. He's been time trial champion a couple of times in Switzerland, at least a couple of times, but road champion.
More than a couple of times. But yes, he was extremely proud to win the road racing title, to take that jersey through to the Tour de France, to ride the big mountains of the Tour with that over on his shoulders. And as a great champion, he can turn it around and work for his teammates, or on an individual basis, he can ride for himself when need be. Let's not forget, he was a man who championed the Tour of Switzerland last year as well.
Yes, he did. They said it wasn't very mountainous, and it wasn't, but he was still the best rider in it. 55 seconds, nosing away from Tomaca. Tomaca's certainly going to have to just worry about the approach of those behind, but he's getting away from them behind. He's now 46 seconds ahead of the chasing duo, so Tom is actually pulling away from his pursuers, and it is going to be a tremendous result, this.
Well, he now has got to just calculate his effort. He's now got a very secure margin over Tom Bonen. It's creeping up to the 1 minute margin, but he's got to make sure that he rides a good line around these roads, because these roads can be very deceptive. There can be a danger around any corner. There can be a broken piece of cobblestone which will fracture the front wheel, and that can change the whole dynamics of the event.
So as they continue, 56 seconds to the second group, a minute 42 to Bjorn Leukemans and Philippe Gilbert. Well, the Belgians have been very much in the frame all day today, and that's always good for this race because the fans just love their sport. As we're looking now at Fabian Cancellara, 55 seconds the gap, 7 kilometers to go. Surely no one's going to spoil his day today.
His face is one of concentration. He's got his hands in the middle of the handlebars. He's not riding over any cobblestones now. I talked to Lance Armstrong in the morning, Phil, about the choice of equipment nowadays compared to when he rode the Tour of Flanders 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's amazing to see. And I wonder if that is why Cancellara changed his machine, because he's got a number on that bike again. And he's got very deep carbon fiber rims, and that will give him a bit of aerodynamic advantage over Bonen.
And this is what Lance was saying, the big change in equipment since his days when he rode the Tour of France back in 2005 was they use lighter wheels now. Look at the face of this. This man will not give up.
He will not give up at all, and he has to fight for his pride, and it's the pride of a nation riding on his back here this afternoon. And after all, you can see the bands on his jersey indicating that he's a former world road racing champion, but he's the current national champion of Belgium, and all of Belgium would be willing him on. But I don't think even if the whole country were to blow behind him right now, he could catch this man, because this is a flying Swiss train.
Well, there's a tailwind up the finishing straight with the strong wind that's blowing, and I've got a feeling it's being created by Fabian Cancellara 7 kilometers away from us, but he's coming towards us, and he will pick up that lovely tailwind as he turns up towards the finishing straight, but he won't need it now. He's heading home as the first Swiss winner of this event since 1923, and Cancellara is just concentrating on the concrete that lies ahead of him. 6 kilometers to go. He now has over a minute over Tom Bonen, who in turn is more than holding his own against the pursuit.
Well, it looks like Bonen is going to survive for second place, and I think he certainly deserves it, because he and Fabian Cancellara were the two strong men of the race this afternoon. We said it before the start of the race that these were the men to watch, and they've come out and put on a massive display, taking the risk of going out 44 kilometers from the finishing line. It's a long way in the sport of professional cycling these days, and to take that kind of risk, they knew today was going to be a dramatic day.
Just eases out the saddle to keep the rhythm going as the sun comes over his head now, and just to remind him that at the finishing line it is quite black. Fabian Cancellara just puts his hand in his back pocket there. A last little bit of energy drink, perhaps. We're into Den de Windeker at 5 kilometres to go. Cancellara is now 62 seconds ahead of Tom Bonen, who is 46 seconds in turn ahead of Philippe Gilbert and Bjorn Leukemans. It is an aggressive pursuit across the roads of Flanders, and nobody is getting any closer.
No cobblestone left now, though, for Fabian Cancellara. It's smooth riding all the way down to the finish, but this last little climb in Den de Windeker must really hurt his legs, because it tips up a fraction before he crests this slope here. He will then go downhill towards the outskirts of Meerbeek, and what will await him will be a champion's welcome.
He's almost got a little smile on his face here, I think, at 5 kilometres to go. He knows that gap is outside a minute now. He knows that nobody can close a minute in just 5 kilometres, not against him, the champion of the time trial, that's for sure. And here is Tom Bonen. Don't give up now, Tom. This is the last little climb that hurts the legs. Dig deep, because you wouldn't deserve anything but second today, because that will be an injustice right now.
It certainly would. Look at the battle. You can read his body language here. He's fighting with his machine, fighting with his bike. He just wants to keep the pace as high as possible and ride up the finishing straight in Meerbeek alone in second position, and not have to sprint it out with Philippe Gilbert, who's chasing him.
Under 4 kilometres to go for Fabian Cancellara. The sun is on his left shoulder now. Perhaps it won't rain after all, even though it's quite dark. He is time trialling to one of his greatest victories. Yes, he's won Milan-San Remo. Yes, he has won Paris-Roubaix. But today, throughout the day, he's shown us he was the best rider in the Tour of Flanders.
And let's not forget the team, because we often talk about the individual in cycling, Phil, but the team today, very early on, over 140 kilometres to go, the team came to the front at all the dangerous strategic points and set out a pace to make sure that Fabian Cancellara was not caught out in any accidents, not caught out in any crashes at the side of the road. They wanted to make his ride as safe as possible until he took control of the reins at the front of the race, with over 25 miles to go to the finish.
These are the two chasers. Sadly, they've got rid on the Mur de Grammont of David Miller of Garmin Transitions. We don't know where he is now. We've run out of cameras to take you any further back. But Philippe Gilbert looking to finish third for a second year in a row. Cancellara here with the black sky above him, just lightening the load just a little bit now as he heads up towards the finish. He's got inside about 3.5 kilometres to go. This is a huge result as well, Paul, for Saxo Bank. They're desperate for a big result, and this is a big result. Huge result.
3 kilometres to go, but just have a look at the body style here of Cancellara. Gets so low on his machine, extremely aerodynamic. His torso at the top is not moving. You can see as we look back here to the black clouds of Belgium above him, getting rid of all the food. He doesn't need to eat anything with 3 kilometres to go, but just have a look at the smoothness of the style of his pedalling. It is so fluid. He's ticking out a very big gear. He's inside of the 50 kilometres an hour average speed here. Now he's relaxed. He's over a minute ahead of everybody else in this race that he has dreamed about since the start of this season.
It makes you think he's just finding it so easy right now, but he's got the feeling of victory now welling up inside him. He's going to live this moment as he heads up to the finish in Meerbeek. Nobody can catch him now. 65 seconds to Tom Bonen. Almost 2 minutes now to the chasing duo behind. Fabian Cancellara has had incredible wins in his life, but this one is going to be very high up in his best ever victories.
He will cherish this one, Phil. This is the one. It's very difficult for a bike rider, especially in the sport that we commentate on a lot, to predict a race that you're going to win. That's the gap between second on the road and first on the road. The cavalcade of cars there are supporting and following the champion of Switzerland, the Fabian Cancellara. It looks very close on the camera, but it's over a minute.
Well, he's settled down now for a long time. So we're looking at a rider who has worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France on 14 different occasions in the Tour de France. He's won 4 stages of that great race. He's won 2 stages of the Vuelta a España, where he's wore the golden jersey on 4 occasions there. But now he's spearheading the Tour of Flanders home, and he's being chased by the champion of Belgium, who still refuses to give up. I'm not sure now whether he's thinking of chasing to catch or to stay away from those chasing to catch him.
He knows he can't catch this man now, Phil, at 2 kilometres to go. The smoothness is completely different to the punchy style of Tom Bonen in second position on the road. This man hasn't shown any weakness at all yet. I think there's going to be quite a big party at Team Saxo Bank tonight.
Just bet on it, as Fabian Cancellara now comes into the streets of Meerbeek and Ninove. He'll shortly make, this is not the right turn, this is onto the main road. There'll be a right turn off this up towards the finishing straight, and he'll have all the time in the world. Time no longer matters now. He can wave at the crowd. There we are, 1 kilometre to the finish. Fabian Cancellara, the first Swiss rider ever to win this race since Henri Suter back in 1923. I don't know whether, well, his parents wouldn't have been born, never mind Fabian Cancellara. And all time for smiles. Oh, I think I'll just have a snack now. What's this? Now, I don't know whether that's a little message back to his wife Stephanie or his daughter Juliana. But one thing's for sure, Cancellara is the champion today, and as always with Fabian, he's done it in style.
Let's have a look at that again. Very nice move.
Well, it's not an Easter bunny, it looks like a little angel. That might be his daughter.
Well, it's probably for Juliana. He's calling the team manager up now. I don't think he's got any mechanical problems. He can now enjoy the final kilometre of this race as he swings into the finishing straight. It's a long finishing straight, a famous finishing straight. It's slightly uphill, and he will be able to enjoy this because he's shaking his head there.
Wonderful
He
feeling.
doesn't believe he's done it.
Absolutely wonderful feeling. Bjarne Riis and Kim Anderson are in that car there. Congratulate him. Job done. But this has been a special job. This has been an absolute show of strength by a man who has given us so many shows of strength over the years. The generous Belgian crowd applaud a real champion today in every way. Olympic time trial, world time trial, Swiss road race champion, and now the winner with the Swiss flag. The first man since 1923 from Switzerland, and only the second in the long history of this great event, the Ronde. Fabian Cancellara takes victory. Tom Bonen will be up shortly.
Well, he will, but you know, this is a great performance, and the Belgians understand they've witnessed a very heroic bike race here this afternoon. Cancellara breathes out now, and he can relax because his mechanicals are all behind him. Any chance of losing this bike race behind him now. He has come out the winner, and the accolades of victory.
Now, as the crowd will mob him, the press are in there. There's Bruno, the photographer, and big congratulations from the team. It was all so worthwhile in the end. That team worked so well today. Their pace setting by O'Grady and Kurt Attelhoff. Well, he's not on the team anymore, but he was last year. He'd be sorry now, won't he? As we go back and concentrate now on the arrival of Tom Bonen, who does his zip up. He'll get a big applause from the crowd because he played every card he had. Today it wasn't good enough. On any other day it probably would have won him his 3rd Tour of Flanders. He'll be disappointed, but he's still a great champion, and he gave it just about all he had to finish second. He's going to smile. Don't let me down now, Tom, because as he comes home, all the flags are out of Belgium on Easter Sunday. Tom Bonen, little wave, comes home in 2nd place.
Well, if he did lose the race, Phil, he lost it in a fighting manner. Listen to the crowd there. That's their champion, and he crosses the line. He fought well today. He was in the right place at the right time, but he just came up against a Fabian Cancellara who was on exceptional form.
Now we just want to see if Philippe Gilbert can complete today for Belgium and get 3rd place. A man who was 3rd last year. He's going to have a bit of a sprint on his hands with Bjorn Jokemans. But he's got himself in the right position as they now swing up into the home straight, and only just, by the way, because there is the race there for 5th place as it will be. So they must have swept up poor David Miller, dropped on the Mieux de Grammont. Bjorkemans, who had 8th place finish last year, whatever happens now is going to be better. He's got to lead out Gilbert. Gilbert actually can pack a sprint finish when it matters, and Philippe Gilbert is going to go through on the inside. 3rd last year and 3rd this year as he runs away. Only last night he was saying he was going to go to bed early on a bowl of pasta. Well, it's worked again for him. Gilbert is home in 3rd place. Bjorn Lukemans gets 4th, and now the sprint for 5th.
Well, Gilbert knew that the move was going. He tried so very hard to get across to it. Lukemans in 4th place, coming up there to the finish line. It's going to be a big sprint there for Bernard Eisel over on the right-hand side to try and get 5th.
And not a bad result here, as Eisel is taking on Tyler Farrer here, and it might be Farrer finishes up, and he comes up to the line. Tyler Farrer is getting another big result, challenged right on the line by George Hincapie, but I'll give that to Farrer, and Hincapie probably over the line in 6th.
Well, that was a big sprint by Farrer, and Eisel was trying to get himself a good final to the day, but what a great day.
So here we have Fabian Cancellara sitting alongside Tom Bonen, who's looking a little bit dejected at the moment, but it won't be for long because he's done a great race. Cancellara just doesn't believe this, does he?
No, well, this is the victory salute here. A great performance by this man. We've seen him do some magical things over the last few years, but today really was, I think, one of those things made of legends.
The Swiss flag flying in Belgium in the Tour of Flanders for the first time since 1923. I'm not sure it ever flew at all in 1923, but even so, that was the last Swiss winner. There's the grandstand generously applauding because they've witnessed this on television at the finishing line. What a strong performance today. Saxo Bank have got a very big result on their hands. They're looking for a new sponsor, so might be now's the time to send your bid in, because they have still a very, very good team.
It's a strong squad, and the fact is, Phil, they took the responsibility for the win very early on in the race, more than 100 kilometres out from the finish line, because they knew they had two very good chances.
Yes, well, there's nothing left to say, and there's nothing much more left for him to win. He seems to be doing everything. He's won the Tour of Switzerland, so he's a good stage race rider. That's the fourth top tour in the world. He's won the Olympic time trial. He's won the World time trial. He's got to pick up the World Road Race sooner or later, and then that will be complete. Well, he's got to go to Geelong in Australia for the World Championships this year, but it's on a course that would suit a man of his type of strength.
Well, he's got the acceleration, he's got the ability to go out a long way from the finish, and he will probably be putting that into the back of his mind. But there's a lot of racing to do between now and then for that man. He's got to get himself to the Tour de France again this year in the month of July. But it really is amazing the dedication he has to the sport. You know, going back to his Olympic medal in Beijing, the day after the Tour de France, he left to go to Beijing, even though he hadn't seen the family for 3 weeks, so he could get used to the time change, get used to the weather conditions, and he was the only rider who took that risk of going there 2 weeks ahead of the games.
And it paid off, of course. Yeah. Attention to detail. When you've got the level of class that this man has got, the details make the difference. So there is the result confirmed. Fabien Cancellara wins today ahead of Tom Bone and Philippe Gilbert, both from Belgium. Loikemans also a Belgian in fourth place. Tyler Farrar out sprinting his countryman George Hincapie for fifth place. Roger Hammond, best ever performance by him, in seventh. And the top 10 completed by William Bonnet of France.
Tom, you came up against a very tough Cancellara today. Was there anything you could do?
I stay in his wheel.
It's a difficult position to finish second, especially for a Belgian in Flanders.
Yeah, but I'm happy after all. At the Muur, I was feeling good, and he passed me, and I wanted to speed up, and I had a little bit problem with my leg, a little cramp. And afterwards, I found my rhythm again, and I was riding 55 km an hour, and I wasn't coming any closer. And I think, yeah, if you lose on a Cancellara in this shape, it's not a really bad thing. Eh?
Fabien, at the start of the season, at the training camp, you said there's one race I want to win this year. It's the Tour of Flanders.
Yeah, and the goal, the dream is true, but I need for sure a few more minutes or hours to realize, because I mean, yeah, in the way I won and to be on the start as a huge favorite, that's not easy. A lot of pressure on, but I learned from my mistakes I made in this race, in other races, and I think that's the secret of today.
It's a big risk to get in a breakaway at 44 kilometers to go and to be in a breakaway with Tom Bonen.
Yeah, but I think for sure that was not planned. That was coming out by instinct. I mean, I knew that I need to try early, because I saw it in the other races that I did here, that when once is a gap and the people are tired, it's hard to close. And that's the reason why I was thinking, okay, make the group again smaller. And that I was with Tom on the end up there. I was surprised. I expect maybe a few riders more, but yeah, that's mean that the riders was tired, and that's was the key point for one moment, and then the rest was on the Muur.
Were you concerned to have Tom Bonen with you, and did you realize you had to make a move on the Muur de Grammont because you couldn't take him to the finish in the sprint?
Since last week, I think about like when we was together. I mean, what am I gonna do again, like last week? But this it was not a real attack. It was I pushed the gear less, and then yeah, I went like steady up with more speed, and then I hit on the radio is a gap, and then I pushed again more, and then was time trial to the end, and a really beautiful moment.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fabien, vous aviez dit c'est la grande...
Well, he may be Swiss, he may have beaten 2 Belgians to the first place, but the crowd have given him an enormous cheer and applause here. Fabien Cancellara wins the Tour of Flanders. On the right, as we look, we see Philippe Gilbert, who took 3rd, and the champion of Belgium, Tom Bonen, who just didn't quite have the answer to that incredible attack on the Mur de Grammont. So he's had some wonderful, wonderful victories throughout his history as a cyclist, but this is going to go down in the history books, I think, and he needs to do a bit of weight training classes, because just look at the size of the trophy, which he can hardly pick up, but he's got it up now. Fabien Cancellara, the champion of Switzerland, and on this occasion today he's also the champion of Belgium. So as Fabien Cancellara examines the trophy, and there is the top 3. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage here of the Tour of Flanders. For the moment, for me, Phil Liggett, and for Paul Sherwin, it's goodbye.